Okay, Mr. Chairman, we're recording.
Excellent. I'd like to open the May 14th, 2024 Bethel Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Thank you. Reading, please note for the record that any personal devices used by the commission members is for the purpose of reviewing materials in the Google Drive located through the Town of Bethel website will not be used to communicate with each other. Thank you. We'll start with the introduction of the commissioners.
Eric Rodriguez, alternate.
Kenny Parson, Commissioner.
Squirrel Braden.
Mike Kozlowski, Commissioner.
Kitty Grant.
Paul Shanley, Chair.
Doug Cuny, alternate.
And with us tonight.
Don't forget the commissioners on Zoom. Mr.
Oh,
Chairman.
excellent.
Diane Ryan, Commissioner.
Bob Legnard, Commissioner.
Excellent. And staff with us tonight.
Chuck Anders, attorney for the commission.
Dave McCollum, Land Use Coordinator.
Amanda Martinez, recording secretary.
Excellent. Just a quick announcement. For anyone in the public that's here for the 140 Greenwood Avenue application, it will be open tonight, and as noted on the agenda, it will be immediately continued until May 28th. There will be no testimony taken tonight. It'll be the same place, same time, May 28th. Just wanted to get that out there in case anyone was waiting for that. Our next item on the agenda is the public hearing for Tim Draper on Park Road. And I refuse to.
Well, thank you. I'm Kitty Grant. Take over. Okay, so we'll start.
Just what? Yeah, for the record.
Bill Morris, Stone Wolf, DC, 158, Deer Avenue, on behalf of the applicant. When we continued this hearing for the last meeting, it was mainly to address engineering comments and comments from the health department. So without wasting a lot of time, I'm going to ask Steve Prickes to give us the responses that he's provided to you. Thanks.
I think this is David, my review. Steve Prinkes, for the record, professional engineer from Southbury, representing the applicant. We received additional comments from both SLR and the health department late Friday afternoon. I do appreciate David sending them out. It was long after municipal hours, around 6 o'clock at night. So, I want to go over a couple things first, really starting with the on the health side. Similar to a subdivision, all the applicant is asking for at this point from the health department is the soils on the site suitable? We're not asking for an approval of a septic plan. We're not asking for a permit to construct, because those are individual permits. The health code requires 18 inches of soil before you hit evidence of seasonal groundwater, commonly called modeling, or 4 feet to bedrock. In this case, in the area of the two systems, there are 2 4-bedroom systems here. Even though we have 6 units, the health code requires for multifamily that you have to build a minimum 4-bedroom system. So the 4-unit building has a 4-bedroom system. The 2-building unit also has a 4-bedroom system. The soils in both areas, the shallowest modeling is 23 inches. It ranges between 23, 24 inches, which is way above 18 inches. So it is suitable. The perks were 1 and 20 inches, which are reasonable for the town of Bethel. The systems, even though I have designed them, we're not asking for approvals of them. The bottoms of them are set on grade, so I'm not even cheating into the existing soil, which I could do theoretically to 18 inches. So we're providing a greater separation. But that's the only aspect that we're asking the health department to weigh in on. So we also, there's an area where there had been a above ground pool, but set in a hole here. When Ryan came out to witness the testing, let me go to the larger sheet here. Back when we started this process, we told him then what we were going to do with this, that we were going to clean it out and fill it with select fill. Last week I had a conversation with Matt Pollock from the State Health Department. Matt is one of the 2 state sanitarians that oversees the 169 towns. There used to be 3, but now there's just 2 of them. And I asked Matt, I told him what we were going to do here, cleaning this out, scarifying it, filling it with select fill. And he said, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. He also told me he had been in conversation with Laura from the health department, and she was told the same thing. So this should be a point that simply disappears, but doesn't seem to have been gone. The other question that came up is why I didn't show the drainage system on this particular sheet. And if I go back to the title page, which is a smaller scale, basically, if I showed all the drainage stuff on here, the plan would be very difficult to read. So I didn't show it that way. However, there was a question is what are the setbacks between the septic systems and various aspects of the drainage system? So there's a drainage pipe that goes from here to a catch basin here. I have a distance on here. Unfortunately, it's not readable on the PDF, but it exceeds the code. I think this is about 18 feet and the code is 10. The catch basin has to be 25 feet. It's 25.2. We have to the oil grit separator from the septic tank, there's 34 feet, and it's about 42 feet to the corner of the stormwater management system, which is not, and I'm going to repeat, not an infiltration practice. The health department keeps citing that it is not. In the last set of comments from SLR, I wrote a response that we removed the language about any infiltration occurring within the system. I did not, that was the only change I made, but I noted that that was made. But Todd, in his recent comments from SLR, said from the March report, the language is still in there. Well, I sent David tonight the revision of 5.3 where that language is gone. So I forgot to send it to David after the last set of plan revisions. Some of the other areas the health department was concerned about, they sent the plans out to Civil One, which is an engineering firm up in Woodbury. And quite honestly, the engineer reviewing those, in my professional opinion, doesn't understand how to apply the health code. He made some comments that, well, the distribution box is in the center. It's only 70 foot long. You can put it on the end. Well, yeah, I could put it on the end. I could put it 5 feet from one end. That's not an issue. I can put the D box anywhere it wants as long as it's no more than 75 feet from the distribution box to the end of the system. The system is all in select fill. And at the time we apply for actual building permits, the health department will review for compliance with the code. She submitted a bunch of information from EPA going from the late 90s, early 2000s, which quite honestly has absolutely no bearing on this application whatsoever. So, in summary, on the health department side, we're asking is suitability, and the code is 18 inches. We're 23 to 24 inches. It's not a matter of debate. It's suitable, period. There's no other debate to it. On the SLR comments that we received Friday, Todd again cites questions about parking. Under 8-3G, an applicant is not required to conform to the town parking regulations. We have 6 units. We have 10 parking spaces for a ratio of 1.66 spaces. When we did Taylor Avenue for Tim, one of the first ones I did for him, we had a ratio of 1.55. Based on other 8-3Gs I've done substantially larger than these, we've done 1.25 for 1-bedroom units, and it's more than adequate parking as far as that goes. We reduced the grade in front of the dumpster, which is right here, so that it's 6%. SLR was making a comment should be less than 2% because rolling the dumpster out and turning it, it might roll away from the guy. I don't know if anybody's really tried to roll a dumpster out, but they're heavy metal wheels. They're not light systems, and they don't roll very easily. As the garbage guy pulls up and they open the gate and he starts rolling it out this way, he's also going to turn it to go face almost due north so that the truck can pick it up. So 6% is adequate. It's not going to roll anywhere as far as that goes. SLR also had comments on some of the grading that we have 2-to-1 slopes, not 3-to-1 slopes. The erosion guidelines recommend 3-to-1. I've designed roads since the early 80s with 2-to-1 slopes, and they're always mowed by the town or homeowners. There's no magic to mowing a 2-to-1 slope, at all. Again, I've gone through the septic, setbacks, and again, they're all on that sheet, 2 of the plan set. So, let's see here. Again, I talked about the hole in the center of the site as far as that goes. One of the other last issues, and this came up in Mr. Ritchie's previous set of comments, was he had gone to the site, walked it, taken a picture of standing water in the hole. This hole is sitting into hard pan. Hard pan doesn't infiltrate, so rainwater or anything that falls in it is simply going to pond. It's the same thing happens in test pits. It was not wet when we dug the test pits, even though it poured the day we were out there. So it's not a wetland. It's simply an impermeable bathtub of hard pan. And so there's no need to have a soil scientist go out here at all. I also, as a professional engineer who have worked for municipalities doing reviews, when I give a proposal to a town, one of my items is be able to inspect the property with the caveats, with the permission of the applicant or the owner, and with the owner or his representative present. I have no right working for a town to simply walk on the applicant's property. I absolutely do not, and I've done this for a lot. So, Mr. Ritchie could have gone on the site walk last week with the commission, or he could have called Tim up and asked to go there with Tim or myself. But to walk on the site by himself, he doesn't have the permission, even though he's a consultant to the town. And I think that's a real important point professionally, in my opinion, because, it is trespass. You don't, unless you're given permission, you don't have the right to go on there, period. So the bottom line is there's no plan changes being submitted. All of the comments have been addressed. The stormwater system meets the Bethel requirements for 0 increase in the 25-year storm. The septic systems are all meet or exceed the code requirements, for particular use. And, basically, I don't think any other comments. I'd be happy to, answer any questions. We've shown the movements of a 40-foot long emergency vehicle, which an aerial truck fits in here. They will come in and out of the site. So there's that safety issue is there. It's been addressed. We have adequate sight line on Putnam Park. This portion of Putnam Park is effectively a raceway. You can see all the way up to the intersection with Route 302. I set a transit up at a 3.5-foot height and looked at a 3.5-foot target, and I can see right to the intersection. So somebody turning at the stoplight, I'm going to see them, and going southbound, it's absolutely no problem to see a car coming up. So, we've addressed the comments. Maybe they don't agree with them, but the bottom line is the site is suitable for this use. And I mean, one of the other issues that Health has asked multiple times is do groundwater monitoring. The only time I have ever done groundwater monitoring is when the modeling is less than 18 inches below grade. We put in a curtain drain and we monitor the groundwater downhill to prove that the curtain drain will lower the groundwater below 18 inches. In my experience in Bethel, going back to the late 80s, I've done lots of hard pan. We have never done groundwater monitoring. So the request of the health department that we do groundwater monitoring out here seems arbitrary and capricious, in my opinion, because it's never been done on any other lot in town, to my knowledge. And that's important. You've got to treat, if the soils meet, they meet. There's no debate in that. So thank you.
Steve, before you get up, would you just address, if you will, I think it's important. Comment number 6 on Todd's letter talks about the 80% versus the 65% TSS removal. I think it's important to put that in context.
Thanks, Neil. In the 2004 Stormwater Manual, which DEP put out, which was the first attempt by DEP to have engineers address water quality, at that time, in the early 2000s, when it was written, there was an assumption in the stormwater field that many other pollutants, metals, hydrocarbons, nutrients, all attached to sediment particles. So if you trap sediment, you theoretically got everything else. DEP put a goal in, and it's a goal. That's all it is. It's a desired goal. It's not a mandate. It's not a requirement to reduce TSS, or total suspended solids, by 80% for post-development conditions. What we have here is catch basins, and we have an oil grid separator in an offline configuration right here. So 1 catch basin, 2 catch basins, a manhole where the water quality flow goes to the separator. All larger events bypass to another manhole and go to the detention system. This will remove 65% of TSS. But again, it's a goal. But since hardly anybody is ever putting sand on parking lots now because they all use chloride, there's really not being any sediment simply applied. And your only other source of TSS is organic material like leaves that get ground up and stay on the pavement. But as Tim is a landscaper, I know on Taylor Avenue, the driveway is clean enough to kind of eat off of. I've never seen any accumulated debris on it. But again, it's a DEP goal. It's not a mandate. And we're very close to it. Would you get, a little bit higher? Possibly, because we're only directing the first inch of runoff to the oil grid separator. And over time, you may actually get a higher removal rate. A lot of these systems work a little bit better as they, get some accumulation in them. But the bottom line is we're at 65%. And based on other projects in town that I have seen, and I've looked at the stormwater management, I will say many of the ones, other 8-3Gs that have come through the town in the past year do not meet the 80% goal either. So.
Steve, out of curiosity, are you familiar with any SLR design systems around here that don't meet the 80%?
Well, yeah, Todd and I had a meeting today about one in Newtown, where one of my clients that I reviewed it for the Newtown Forest Association took an appeal of the project and concerned about water quality and volume going onto their protected land. And we offered suggestions to improve at least one basin design, if not perhaps all of them, to do constructed wetlands where you would get much higher removal efficiencies, not just of TSS, but metals, hydrocarbons, and nutrients. But the original designs that were approved by the Newtown Wetlands Commission did not meet the 80%.
Whose designs are those?
That was Mr. Ritchie's design. He represented that. I don't know the design engineer at SLR that may have done the actual work.
Oh, that's interesting. You answered my question.
Interesting.
If I can follow just briefly on Steve's comments, I've reviewed the SLR report, obviously, and I reviewed the Civil One report. And I'm a little confused by what Civil One is doing here. And again, I'm not criticizing the organization. I've worked for them and they're a quality group of engineers. This engineer who seems to have reviewed it doesn't appear to be a licensed sanitarian. Is that a separate license, Steve?
Yes, it is. And in order to review a septic system and or quote unquote approve it, you have to be a licensed sanitarian according to Matt Pollock from the State Health Department. And as we're not asking for a permit to construct, I did not respond to the civil comments because they're simply not applicable. But I do have concerns as these are basically 2 4-bedroom septic systems. They're not anything complicated. They're a green leach system, which is a proprietary system permitted under the health code. Why the health department would send this out for review, because this is not anything unusual.
Again, looking at the Civil One letter of April 23rd, the paragraph that introduces the request by the Bethel Health Department, it says that they've been requested to determine compliance with the public health code for on-site sewage disposal regulations and technical standards for substance disposal systems. And that would be a review of an actual system that's been designed, which it really hasn't been here. As Steve said, we're really just on the issue of the soil qualifications to sustain the type of system that we're talking about. Its feasibility and nothing else. But this report goes into great details theoretically on the system, but I'm a little confused. In comment number 1, there's a suggestion that the applicant shall submit floor plans for each building to verify the bedroom counts. I'm not sure. Is there any question for the commission on the materials that we submitted, bedrooms we're going to do here? Because I thought that was a given. that the plans show the number of buildings and the number of bedrooms. So I'm just a little confused why the review engineer seems to think it's not clear. So number one, that was a problem for me. And then it says the applicant shall provide proof of water supply. Now, I've never seen a review of a septic system that talks about the water supply. So I'm a little confused, quite honestly, about why they did this report. The water supply is completely different, obviously. And then there are other things in this report here that Steve pointed out, where you put the D boxes when you finally design the system. It's up to the design engineer to do that. But there are a couple of comments here that I thought were a little bit strange in this review. I got down to paragraph 17 on page 3, I guess it is. But it says the site distance line should not be shown on sewage disposal system plans. To which I say, where's that? I've never seen that in any health code regulations or septic requirement. Usually when you do plans like this, you put a lot of stuff on the maps, and our criticism generally is the maps are too hard to understand. You got too much stuff written on it. So can you break it apart? So if you can show your sight lines on the map that has the least traffic in terms of what's going on in it, then I would do it. And I'm not sure why the civil engineer thinks that that's a problem dealing with the feasibility of the septic. So there's a lot of stuff in here that, as I say, as I read it, I couldn't quite get a grasp of what the gist of this whole review was. The septic, you determine the feasibility, if we provided it or not. And then once the project moves forward, the septic systems get engineered, designed, and they get submitted to Laura, obviously, to the health department. And if she's not comfortable with reviewing them, it doesn't go to Civil 1. It goes actually to Matt Pollock. It goes to the state usually. So I'm just a little confused, and I see this as somewhat of a kind of a red herring. It's thrown in here, not necessarily for the purposes of dealing with this application on the merits of what we're applying for. And I get, of course, even further confused when I look at Laura's submissions, which Steve referred to before, starting at the end of her letter, and after the Civil 1 photographs, there's this whole submission of material dealing with matters from the EPA. It starts with pipeline, septic systems, and source water protection. And then it goes on for almost 20 pages with material that I don't think is directly related to this application at all. So if the commission reads this material and you're wondering why it's there, I think you have to ask Laura exactly why you're supposed to be reviewing this as a part of the record of this application. It's to say it's informative if you're going to study to be a civil engineer or a sanitarian, but it really has nothing to do with this application. I can't figure out why it's here. So all of this is a little confusing, because at the end of the day, the report for the Bethel Health Department should really be on the feasibility of the site to the septic systems. And these septic systems, quite honestly, are no different than the average four-bedroom house. I mean, they're relatively small, they're relatively simple, and they seem to be treated in this application a little out of proportion. So that's one of my concerns. But other than that, I think that Steve's response to SLR and the material that he submitted in his comments this evening should address to their satisfaction the questions. I guess I can't be a Bethel P&C hearing that I attend unless we talk about garbage dumpsters, and because that's a favorite of the health department. Here, the garbage dumpsters are raised by SLR, and it has to do with the grade approaching the pad. And, it's interesting. I don't know what SLR's qualifications are. And I don't know, quite honestly, what Laura Casil's qualifications on that issue. But I spoke this afternoon with Fuller Pressey. Some of you may recognize his name. I'll tell you, his qualifications in the garbage industry are really good. He's been doing it his whole life. And I asked him, is this an issue? I mean, you service sites. And the fact of the matter, he said, not at all. And much to the point that was made by Steve, he said to me, you ever try to roll one of these dumpsters? And I said, yeah, I probably have. He said, they don't move very well. He said, those wheels are almost impossible. He said, A, they're not rubber, they're metal. And B, he said, the people don't tend to lubricate them very often, or for that matter, ever. And he said, he said, that's not an issue for garbage service. So having said that, those are some of my comments without going into the same detail that Steve's going into in his report. But if you read these reports, just ask yourself why you're reading it, because I couldn't figure it out quite honestly.
Steve Turkis, one last comment I have on the stormwater management system, which is here in the southeast corner of the site. This area wasn't suitable for septic. That's why there's no septic here. This is basically a filled up area that we're putting the gallery system in. This is the cross section. Oops, oh, so it's not going to go that way. I think that's go here. So basically, I'm building a dirt pile, for lack of a better term. We're going to compact the dirt pile because there's not going to be any infiltration. And then in this white area is the Caltech units. Basically, it's an impermeable bathtub. We showed a 1-to-1 slope coming down to grade. And one of the reasons we did that is the proximity to the property line. Todd's requesting that we rip wrap it. Well, if I had a building above it or a roadway above it, yes, I would rip wrap it. But this is simply going to be seeded. It's going to be with a meadow mix, and then it's going to remain as a meadow. We're not touching it. We're not going to mow it. So as we're compacting it, it's not going to go anywhere. It's only roughly 4 feet above grade, maybe 5 foot on the worst case scenario. So we're not talking a giant 10-foot slope here. We're basically talking a big pile of dirt that's compacted. So this is going to stay 1-to-1. You can vegetate it and you can, leave it in place, and that's what we intend to do.
Thank you.
I think that's it. We haven't answered any commission questions.
That's fine. Did you, Mr. Labor, do you want to put your name on the record? Do you have anything to say? Mrs. Trigger?
Tim Draper, 48 in Betty's Lane West. I did talk to the manager at Oak Ridge. Absolutely no problem with the dumpster where it's at. I showed him the site plan. And I asked him also about the size of a dumpster enclosure. And he says, as long as the dumpster fits in it, he doesn't care. I just want that on the record because I know it's come up before. It's come up on my projects and I know it's come up on other ones in town. So that's where all our garbage goes is the Oak Ridge transfer station over there on Lake Street. And that was straight from the manager. So besides that, you took care of the technical stuff. Oh, yes. A week and a half ago, Dave McCollum emailed me for a site walk, which is the right thing to do. When somebody just willy-nilly walks on your property, that's trespassing. Okay. Now, whether Mr. Ritchie thinks that he's an agent for the town or acts as the agent for the town, he still needs to contact somebody. And it should be me, because I'm the property owner. And if it's not me, it's I believe Steve is the applicant for this, right? It should have been Steve. Or it should have been the Bethel Land Use Department, who would have contacted one of us. So what if he slipped and fell? I don't know who he is. He could have just said, I wasn't working for the town. I mean, that was pretty egregious in my book. So I want to put that on the record. It shouldn't happen again. We'll just say that. I'm not done building. So if it happens again, there will be an issue. That's all. Thank you.
Finished, Neil?
I think we're finished except for response to
Oh, I-
public
I-
information. Thank you.
Okay. David, you,
I've just a couple of comments, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you. I know I went through my review comments at the last time we held a public hearing. I will say there is one item from those response comments that today, at least to my knowledge, I have not seen a response, which is the exterior lighting for the buildings. That was a comment that I had raised, and to date, I don't have any kind of response with regards to revised architecturals that show the exterior lighting. So just to put that out there. And while I have this in memory with respect to the site walk that the commission conducted this past Thursday, I believe, if the commissioners that were out there on that site walk may recall, and also to my memory, there were not any no trespassing signs posted on the property. And that would be a very obvious prompt for anyone that wanted to walk on that property to say, okay, this sign is posted for a reason. There should be some perhaps protocol given with respect to those. I know in the past that has been an item of interest for other applications. So I just wanted to make sure that was noted for the record. And if any commissioners saw any such signs, feel free to correct me because I did not. In terms of other items that I may have to offer, and like I said, I will do my best to be brief. You have all of your technical experts that have offered written comments in attendance tonight, either in person or remotely. Okay, Attorney Andrus is here. He has been counsel for the Planning and Zoning Commission before. Todd Ritchie, who is of SLR, who has provided review comments from an engineering perspective. Laura Basile, the Director of Public Health, and also in attendance tonight, if I can get his last name correctly, I believe it's Chris Pawlowski of Civil One, who has also submitted review comments. Amanda had recently distributed a response from Civil One that we received either yesterday or today. The applicant should have gotten that as well. So make note of that for the record. But I would advise you that if you have any technical questions, to ask them tonight while you have all of your experts and the applicant in the same room, so that you can have productive dialogue on this application. The one last thing that I will offer, and I'm going to put on my inland wetlands agent hat here on briefly. With respect to wetland, I am not a soil scientist, and I have no intention to try to have a facade as one, or however you would say it, but I think it's worth noting that wetlands are not determined by the absence or presence of water. They are determined by soil type. And it's worth noting that soil tests have been asked, they have been requested by Laura and Todd at least once in each of their review reports to address the soil, or so that the applicant can make sure that whatever on-site soil conditions exist, that they are addressed. So it's worth noting that for the record, and just making sure that that's clear. I don't have much else to say. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have. But otherwise, if not, I would give the floor to Attorney Andrus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question. I want to confirm. I had a quick discussion with Attorney Marcus before we opened the hearing, just to make sure that we agree about the deadlines. for this application for the commission to decide. And I think we both agreed that there's the typical 65, 35, 65 is what we call it, 65 days to open the public hearing, 35 days to complete the public hearing, and then 65 days after the close of the public hearing to render the decision. And the applicant can grant up to, 65 days. And that, depending on when we close the public hearing, then the commission will have 65 days to render a decision. So Attorney Marcus, did I say that correctly?
I think that's correct. And the only thing, as I said to Attorney Anderson, that the hearing last month was called a continued public hearing, even though it was the first night of the real public hearing, because the matter had appeared, correct me if I'm wrong, on the agenda for the prior month as a public hearing, but it was opened and no evidence was presented, no testimony of it.
Right.
So essentially, the first 35 days occurred before last month, the first section. That wasn't quite 35 days. Before last month, we then gave an extension to make sure that we could complete the public hearing within 35 days as extended. So tonight's the extension period. And if we are going to keep this open beyond this evening, then we'd probably have to do another extension.
Right.
But at the moment, we are definitely within the time frame that you've related. No question.
Yeah, and Chuck Anderson, yes, the main frame I'm concerned is whenever we close the public hearing, we have 65 days. There's agreement about that. David did show me the legal notice. I thought it did say April 9th, which is the date. That's when it was open, but maybe it was open previously. I didn't think of the application was for,
Wasn't on the agenda for the prior meeting?
In March, no.
Oh, I thought it was. Okay, we'll check that, because it was called, if you look at last month's agenda, it was called a continued public
I don't
hearing.
have
Maybe that was just a misprint on the agenda. Maybe I misread it.
I don't have it with me, I'm sorry.
That's the way it was printed.
It was,
Second
Find the one for
For March.
27th, I believe.
and the other thing is just as a matter of process that during deliberations, the commission can continue to speak to its consultants. You can speak with me, speak with David, speak with Todd, you can speak with Laura and Mr. Pawlowski during the deliberations.
that's correct.
All right.
The door's off, sorry.
Oh, you're right.
Sorry.
Or there's tight security in Bethel.
While that agenda is being acquired, Madam Vice Chair, perhaps you can go out to those attending, the experts attending tonight's meeting remotely for comments.
So yes, everything is coming.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Can we start with Laura Vasile? Laura, do you have any comments? Tonight?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I thank you for your time this evening. As I've written to you all and everyone involved, the commission has the statutory authority and responsibility to protect ground and surface water. And I have the responsibility as the Director of Health to protect the public health and to prevent disease. And all the information I've provided you about a soils investigation, proper treatment of septic effluent, and when it gets into groundwater and making sure it doesn't contaminate the groundwater is really at the heart of the issue that may not be understood. Mr. Trinkus did speak with the state. He didn't write it in tonight's letter, but he did get confirmation that I have the authority and the responsibility to ask for groundwater monitoring. This isn't a single house, a 1-for-1, a 2-bedroom house to a 2-bedroom house on a single lot, 1.12 acre approximately. This is 2 structures, 2 septics, a stormwater system in an area that the health department has had a lot of complaints and has been doing a lot of work because of groundwater and surface water and septic system problems. And the state DOT has contacted the health department as well this year. So the literature that you have is to, I apologize for its length, but it's to openly and transparently communicate why it is so important to make sure that septic system effluent won't get into the surface or groundwater and move elsewhere. Further, when you have that movement, because there's a good slope there, you want to make sure that a certain amount of bacterial and viral renovation has occurred before it continues along its movement path. So groundwater monitoring is required. I am asking for it. I cannot complete the determination that I always provide for the commission that until such time as that is done. I will say, and maybe the project engineer knows, but on August 30th of 2023, when one of my staff went there for very limited soil testing investigation, and no detailed plans were discussed, or no, certainly not the caliber of assessment that's required in this case. The groundwater was at a very, very low level. Now, unfortunately for me, they just took the USGS groundwater site down, but there is still data available online that you can look at to see just how low the groundwater was versus April and May of this year, where we could have been out there. The other ask of mine is in writing is that the Public Health Code does require that the health director make sure that the stormwater system won't have a mounding issue and won't impact the septic systems. And I have, in I think 3 documents, tried very hard in plain language to spell that out. And the project engineer, for some reason, is refusing to do this. The state health department has told me they don't understand why, that they found it valid, and that I have some responsibilities. If a stormwater system is in proximity to the septic system, you want to make sure that untreated effluent will not get into that water and that it won't keep moving and impact elsewhere. So those are 2 really critical points on that, and why I put the EPA articles. I wanted to show you, if you go on the EPA website today, you will see that they say the most serious documented problems involve contamination of surface and groundwater with disease-causing pathogens and nitrates from septic systems. And it could come from other sources, industrial as well. So I wanted to show you that this isn't a new item. This is something that I have certifications in subsurface sewage. Civil One does, Steve does, Todd Ritchie does. Civil One, I asked them to, I did not ask them to be the director of health or to make any determinations for me. I simply asked them to use their professional engineering skills and separate of my reports, read and assess the site plans and give me their engineering comments, which I've shared with you in the project engineer. I find them very useful and very informative. And I hope the commission does. I think that we need to do the work that I have asked 3 times for. And I think that in doing so, I can give you a determination of from the health department. I called the state health department, and when I didn't know that a lot of other people were calling the state health department, and I put everything and all my actions out there. I do have notes here from my discussions with the state, and on that significant excavated area between 2 septic system areas, what we want to look at again is the soil even re-prepared ability to absorb and disperse the sewage effluent without causing a problem to the lower septic system. And the reason that you look at these things is we don't want to create a public health problem. We don't want to cause a problem that could get people ill. And we don't want to adverse condition for the property owner. So that is the summary of what I have spelled out to you in writing. And I am, if this was a single lot with a maybe, I think it was a 2-bedroom, I have the assessor's card from 1900. Certainly, if this plan was for that, maybe the very basic information that's on the plan we could work with, even though there's a lot of issues about groundwater in this area that should be addressed. And so, but with the multifamily proposal that exists, it warrants the proper and thorough investigation that is normally done so that a good comment can be provided and I can make the suitability determination. I wanted to see if there was anything else about, I do respond with my staff to many, many garbage complaints, rat complaints, odor complaints, nuisance complaints. And I actually had, I've had containers roll towards me, and it's, like on occasion. So, but that I don't want to get into, that's not what I want to get into right now. What I did until Bethel can come up with a reasonable ordinance is the health department as provided to you and could provide to you again, a national guide on sanitization and controlling garbage so that we don't increase the rat population or other wild animals or flies or maggots or nuisance conditions that people normally don't like and call me pretty upset about. So we're not trying to be adverse to people. We're just trying to size things properly, help people contain it and seal it, and live nuisance free. I do have pictures, recent pictures. I was actually asked to go pick up some litter because there was no one else available on near Taylor Road or Taylor Ave. And I have pictures of the overflowing screened in garbage, and I can share them with you. And we're not contacting people or trying to be egregious. We just want to have sanitary, nuisance-free community living for everybody. So unless you have questions for me, I think I'll leave it there. Or for Civil One, whose report, again, I found very helpful as a secondary opinion. They saw what I did about the risk of untreated sewage coming in contact with groundwater or surface water, and the critical necessity to make sure we understand during the wettest time of the year what the maximum groundwater level is, and have we really addressed that so the effluent will absorb and disperse itself without any overflow, outbreak, or disease causing problems in the waters.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate it. Okay, Mr. Ritchie, would you have any comments? Todd?
Sure. I can just recap our latest review letter and open up for any questions, if you'd like. If I could identify myself for the record. My name is Todd Ritchie. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with SLR. I'm also a board certified environmental engineer. I'm also a registered environmental health specialist and a registered sanitarian. So my letter dated May 9th, 2024, basically summarizes we've gone back and forth several times with the project engineer, Mr. Trinkus, and we've discussed various items that we brought up in our review of the plans, and many of them have been addressed. Some of them we basically agreed to disagree on, and that's the designer's choice to proceed that way. We do feel that the items that in our latest letter are of significance to the commission in considering a potential approval. I can kind of just summarize one by one quickly. I mean, parking, that issue was just basically saying that nothing was presented up until the latest comment or response that we received today from the project engineer. Nothing was presented as far as what the parking count concentration was, or the density. So that's now been provided, and that's, I think, useful for the commission to review and consider. And also just in light of the fact that, these are 1-bedroom units. However, potentially two adults could live in each unit that both have vehicles. So if there's 6 of them, then that would potentially require 12 vehicles without visitor parking. So not to say that all of them would be occupied that way, but that is a potential maximum on the site. And there's no potential for street parking at this location for overflow parking. The dumpster rollout, it's not really something we usually focus on, but the grade used to be from the previous plan, like 11 or 12%, maybe higher in that area, which was significantly more than what it is now. It was brought down to 6%. So, that's 12% is a maximum slope for a driveway for the town of Bethel regulations. So 6%, just comparably, handicap sidewalk slopes are maximum 5%. So, for purposes of not having them be too steep for either going up or down. So this is 6%. So that's even over the maximum of a handicap sidewalk slope. I'm not an expert in dumpsters, but I am a registered sanitarian as well. And I could tell you that, I've been around dumpsters that move, and they can move under all different conditions: ice, wind, high wind, because they could catch a lot of wind. So there's a lot of different forces, not just human forces, that move dumpsters, especially on wheels. The wheels are supposed to be maintained enough for people to actually move them without hurting themselves. That's another issue, is like, I don't think you want somebody actually straining themselves to move these things and having some sort of ailment or back problem. So obviously there's an ease of access and ease of use. That's kind of what we're talking about here. There's a balance. The recommendation that we have is a maximum of 2% to allow for drainage, and also to not be too steep to minimize the potential for these dumpsters to roll uncontrollably. Our comment still stands. I don't believe it's been addressed adequately, but that's up to the commission to determine from your deliberations. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them regarding that issue before I move on, though.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzo.
I can. Well, I do have. I was going to go through the other comments as well. I just didn't know if you had any questions about that one in particular.
Well, we'll have questions from everybody as soon as we finish here.
Okay. And let me go through, and then you can wrap up with any questions. Sorry.
Okay.
The proposed ground slopes in the grass lawn areas, again, 3-to-1 slope is quoted from the Connecticut guidelines for erosion and sediment control. Sure, they're guidelines, but they do mention safety. So I would think a guideline related to safety was one that you would want to follow. So vegetated mowed slopes, where a slope is to be vegetated mowed, the slope shall not be steep, it actually says shall not be steeper than 3-to-1. Flatter slopes are preferred because of safety factors related to the operation of equipment. Again, commission can make a determination whether safety is a concern as far as the steepness of the slopes. Just be reminded, these aren't random slopes that are unmowed or unmaintained along a subdivision road from the 1980s, like Mr. Trinkus alludes to. These are actually slopes along a parking lot and leading to the grass lawn areas of the property that will probably be used by, children at play, if there's children on the site, and the applicant may not be the person in perpetuity that owns and maintains this property. There may be some other maintainer that comes on site that attempts to mow the 2-to-1 slopes and has difficulty or perhaps a mishap. And the town is the one that ultimately has approved the site plan to have those slopes. So you do have to consider things like that, and that's why we bring them to your attention. The proposed steep 1-to-1 vertical to horizontal slopes around the proposed underground detention system. This system is going to be like 4 feet above the existing grade, so it's not just a couple feet high. It's actually pretty significant elevation. So this one-to-one slope around the system, one-to-one slopes are basically what they call the angle of repose. It's a 45-degree slope. So there's no reason that's like it's steeper than a staircase. So the point is that one-to-one slope has high erodibility. And again, back to the guidelines for sediment erosion and sediment controls, they state that putting topsoil is only on vegetative cover is only applicable on slopes 2-to-1 or flatter, due to the high potential for erosion and sloughing. So we recommend riprap or some sort of stone line around this to prevent the erosion around the detention system, which is also an infiltration system. I'll mention in a second, because if that slope does erode around that system, then that system has the potential to fail. It could break out, it could bleed out. It's not going to function as it was designed. The other thing too is that with an open bottom system, an open bottom stormwater system on a site that you're putting sewage into, because the soils have capacity to accept sewage into the ground, is also the same soils that are going to accept stormwater into the ground as well when you have an open bottom stormwater system, which this is. There's no liner underneath this system. This is not a bathtub, as the design engineer alluded to. This is an open bottom infiltrative system. He mentioned that 2 times in 2 of his report conclusions that we pointed out to him that he had to revise and take language out of in order to somehow comply with our comment, which never got, no design ever got changed, no detail ever got changed of the design. It was just words that apparently were Freudian slips or something of that sort. So the point is that this system will allow for infiltration, and water going into it will infiltrate into the soils. It's simple. It's basic, and I don't know why there's an impasse on this. Just because somebody calls it something doesn't mean that's what it is. So number 5, SLR has requested that the applicant shows all of the proposed drainage system components on the septic plan. The health department has also requested this. This is standard stuff. This is not asking something very unique. We would like to look at it on a scaled plan. I'm used to looking at Mr. Trinkus's plans. They've been very complicated over the years. I've gotten used to that. I can review very complicated plans. So if he's saying he's doing it as a favor to me, I don't ask for the favor, and I never did. So I would like to see all the information on the same plan so that we can evaluate it and look at it, such as the same as the health department. I mean, that's not too much to ask to make that request that you show everything you're proposing on the same plan by the person who's reviewing the plan. As far as the suspended solids argument, I'm a little remiss about Mr. Marcus teeing Mr. Trinkus up for some sort of hit job on SLR, which was actually not even, he doesn't even understand is not what he thinks it is Mr. Trinkus is not a peer reviewer for SLR. Mr. Trinkus is hired by opposition groups to oppose projects, including many of SLR's projects. He goes out and speaks totally the opposite in a lot of ways than what he's presenting to you tonight about how other people's projects are required and mandatory and must meet these guidelines of the Stormwater Quality Manual, which is surprising to me now that he backs away from that for his own project to say that he doesn't need to meet those requirements because it's a guidance document as a guideline. As far as the project that he referenced for SLR, he has a difference of opinion there. We meet it, and the town hired an actual peer reviewer through Ty and Bond who agreed with us and said that we meet 80% total suspended solids removal. So that was quite a misrepresentation, but not surprised because Mr. Trinkus is hired by the opposing parties, the neighborhood groups and the conservation groups in that town to oppose our project. So that's not really germane to his defense of our questioning of that. But again, we can agree to disagree. If Mr. Trinkus wants to proceed with not meeting the guideline, then sure, it's documented. The commission can approve it that way, and we can move forward. The applicant engineer also as I mentioned, he continues to state that the detention system is not an infiltrative system. As I mentioned, he's mentioned in 2 of his own report conclusion that it infiltrates water. And until we pointed it out and we did a review of his report, he didn't apparently know what he was saying in his own report that he signed and sealed. So we basically said, you're saying it infiltrates. It's an stormwater infiltration system. And now, as of the latest response, it doesn't infiltrate just because he took text out of his report. So we also wonder where he does calculations for the groundwater recharge volume. So if the groundwater recharge volume is being infiltrated into the ground, how is that being accomplished if the system doesn't infiltrate? We've asked for drawdown calculations to tell us how quickly that groundwater recharge volume would go into the ground, but they weren't provided. And maybe this is just another thing that the design engineer says he doesn't have to comply with. And I guess we would just want to know the justification for that, and the commission could approve it accordingly. As far as being accused of trespassing and illegal activity, I think that kind of speaks for itself for SLR's reputation as being one of the leading engineering consulting firms in the state. We do many reviews for many towns, including surrounding towns, Bethel. We've done for Easton. We've done for Bridgewater. So we've done many reviews all across the state, and we never have been accused of trespassing or criminal activity. We are acting on behalf of the town. We are fact finders. If we'll take it as we've worked on reviews of this applicant's previous projects where we've gone out to the site in a similar manner and stated that on the record, and it's never been accused of trespassing or illegal activity on previous reviews. So it's unfortunate that that's the response to what we observed when we were out there, which was quite concerning. Standing water in the area of a septic system that's not acknowledged or documented by the applicant or his engineer is actually quite concerning. And if you want to use the word egregious, I guess that might apply as well. So I would say that in conclusion, we don't really change any of our conclusions. We still feel that if we're going to consider our observations or not of the 24 inches of standing water that was on the property in between the proposed septic system and the area of the proposed septic system, we recommend that it be evaluated further. I mean, there's no telling whether that's from groundwater or surface water or both, and it does, and which leads to say, is it wetlands? I mean, it's been discussion about it being a location of a previous above ground pool, but I don't know if anybody noticed there's a 30-inch mature tree in the middle of it growing in the water. So I don't know when that pool was. Maybe it was 100 years ago, but I'm just saying that it's been there a long time. That's the way that it functions. And as Miss Facile said, she mentioned that we have to look at the existing conditions and use those to guide us to determine, is there a significant fluctuation of potential for high groundwater on this site that could impact the function of the septic system and other systems, including the drainage system, that and the relationship of the two together. If the septic system can't be put where it is, or it has to be revised, then that affects there's required separating distances to other things, such as the stormwater system that are catch basins and tanks and all of these stormwater tanks or stormwater or different types of components of the systems that need to be maintained, separating distances and those types of things. So as far as I'm concerned, in this letter, the information submitted for the parking demand has been satisfied for the commission to review. As the remainder of the comments, we still have not basically deviated from our position.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rudy. I appreciate it. Hey, should we go to the public next?
I don't know if the other consultant just.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Civil one, is it Mr. Paul?
Mr. Pulaski.
Mr. Pulaski. Do you have any comments you'd like to add?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. For the record, my name is Chris Palazzi with Civil One. I'm a licensed professional engineer here in the state of Connecticut. Can you all hear me?
Yes, certainly.
Awesome. I'm going to keep this brief tonight. I would like to just read a statement that we submitted yesterday. I know it arrived yesterday. I just want to make sure it's in the record. I just want to state that Civil One has been hired by the Bethel Health Department to provide a third-party professional review of the subsurface sewage disposal system plans of the proposed residential project located at 9 Putnam Park Road in Bethel, Connecticut. Civil One is not inspecting, investigating, nor approving plans related to the subsurface sewage disposal systems. Civil One is performing a professional engineering review of the subsurface sewage disposal plans as requested by the Bethel Health Department. It is customary, prevalent, and well established that professional engineers provide peer reviews of other professional engineers' work as requested by regulatory authorities. We have previously submitted a letter back in April that had several points of noted deficiencies on the plan submitted by the applicant. Some of the highlights include concerns regarding the groundwater and groundwater mounding in the area of the septic system and throughout the site, and separating distances to the stormwater systems and other associated features. It is our opinion and the as stated in the letter that Laura Vasile, the local director of health, is within her purview to request groundwater monitoring on the site. And it is our belief that there are still significant potential adverse impacts to public health and safety as currently proposed by the applicant. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding our review, but at this time, I don't have anything else to say. Thank you.
Fine, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, did you want to comment at
Why don't you
all?
go to the public and I'll respond.
Well, I will do that. Thank you very much. Anything else you want to add, Chuck, right at this time?
No, I have not.
David?
There is one thing I think that is worth adding, Madam Vice Chair. And I'm glad, and I appreciate, Laura Vasile, making comments with respect to surface water and to groundwater. An abutting property owner, who resides at 123, Milwaukee Avenue, I think is it Milwaukee Road or Milwaukee Avenue? They had expressed concerns about the way that water would behave with respect to the activities proposed on this property and any effects that it may have with respect to what is on their property. So I went out and got the property owner's permission to take a look at their property. And I essentially took a look at what was out there. And I think I will submit these photographs for the record. I'm going to put them up on the screen right now so that everybody can see what I intend to submit. But when I was out at this abutting property, I saw what appeared to be some kind of surface water feature where water was flowing away from the property line due east of this subject property. I don't know if you guys can see it very well here on the screen, so I'll use my cursor. The property owner is up here in the background. The stone wall that the commissioners saw when they were out on their sidewalk is way up in the background. And here in the foreground, I'll zoom in on it here, it appears to be some kind of water feature. I'm not a soil scientist, so I'm not going to try to say what it is. But there appears to be some kind of water that is flowing here. And it's worth noting that just taking a simple measurement from the stone wall that is at the eastern edge of 9 Putnam Park Road to where this water feature begins, where water is visible on the surface. The tape measure that I ran here, it's less than 60 feet. Okay, that's the number that I have here on the tape measure. So if it's not just the concerns for where water is on the subject property, 9 Putnam Park Road, it's of interest perhaps to question whether or not this water feature may have any bearing on what is being done at 9 Putnam Park Road. I'd be happy to answer any other
So the water is
questions.
flowing from 9 Putnam Park.
The water is on the surface on 123 Milwaukee. There's nothing that appears to indicate that there's any surface water coming from 9 Putnam Park Road, but still, this water has to come from somewhere. And it's perhaps worth investigating as to what this water feature actually is, especially if it is within 100 feet of the applicant's property.
Okay, okay.
And there wouldn't have been any prompt for the applicant to investigate this, as it's not on their own property. But it is something that I think that the commission should consider as part of what's going on with the soils in that area.
Is it 100 feet to the property or 100 feet to where a structure or activities would be happening?
It is less than 100 feet to the property line. I will say in that area, or as the commission will recall from looking at the site plans, elements of the stormwater management system and the septic system may be in fact within 50 feet of that property line. So the concern isn't necessarily for structures per se. It's about land that is being disturbed within whatever distance of that water feature. So that's why that comment is raised to you, Madam Vice Chair and Mr. Kozlowski.
David, when were you contacted by the new?
That's a good question. I conducted my site visit on May 2nd, which would be 12 days ago. So that would have been Thursday, May 2nd. But they had coordinated with me to go out to that property. I would say I think it would have been either April 29th or April 30th.
Okay, just so it's relatively recent.
Correct.
Information, right?
Correct.
Excuse me, the applicant, Tim Draper, 48 Aunt Patty's Lane. So David, you coordinated with the landowner from the town of Bethel as an agent,
I went out to the abutting property owner.
and you coordinated with the landowner.
Yes, I did.
Thank you, that's it.
Laurel Draper, 48 Aunt Patty's Lane West. Can you show me on a map where that property abuts 9 Putnam Park Road?
Yes.
Because I'm confused on that.
Sure, not a
I
problem.
can't figure that
I
either.
know.
No,
It does,
that's,
though. I saw it
Okay,
myself.
I'm just asking them to.
no, that is a good question.
Because.
Actually, I will, it would be best to bring up the site plan and use that as reference, but I will, first look at Bethel GIS first, because that shows, the abutting property.
I didn't think so either. That's why I'd just like to see it on the map.
Okay. So where are we here?
And I'm still gonna ask, I'm gonna go back to this walking on people's property. Is it common practice for the commission to contact the applicant when they want to walk the property?
It's staff that coordinates the sidewalks for the commission, and as Mr. Draper noted, he was contacted to schedule a
Not
sidewalk
you,
for the property.
exactly. I'm going back to Mr. Ritchie, who said that, he does. He does walks all over the place, but he doesn't specify whether he's contacted or not. And I'm just curious on if he slipped and fell and hit his head, would be his property and he'd be liable for that.
Right.
I mean, there's gotta be a reason why the commission calls and then you sign waivers and all that stuff.
Well, I will say the commission, neither the commission nor I signed any waivers when we conducted our site walk at the property for on 9 Putnam Park Road.
Okay, but you did contact Tim.
That's correct.
But you did it as an agent of the town. Okay,
And it was a public meeting.
and it was a public
And the
meeting,
public could come.
so,
But he
and
didn't-
then if the public did come, we would have had them sign waivers, but they didn't come. Only the commission came.
He went on his own. That's my
Well,
concern.
he is an agent of this town. He works for this town.
I-
That he does, right?
I agree with Mr.
Contacted him.
Draper. I thought had a great attitude. Let's not let it happen again. And I think, that's the way to go.
It's not good practice.
It's not a good practice. It's very, very.
David, could you put your cursor on what you're talking about up there?
Yes, so the subject property for this application is highlighted here in red, 9 Putnam Park Road. The abutting property, which I visited on May 2nd, is highlighted here. It is 120, it is addressed as 123 Milwaukee Avenue.
Okay.
I don't want to try to specify just by an aerial map where exactly on this property the surface water begins to appear, but it should be noted that the stone wall for which I used as a reference, how far the surface water is away from the property is here at this easternmost extent where my cursor is running. Okay.
I'm not worried about it.
And I will show you the plan with respect to what is going on close to that stone wall, or the improvements, I should say, that are proposed close to that stone wall.
Did you measure the elevation too? Sorry. Like,
Uh,
is it going up a hill or down?
So that's another good question. It should be noted that the water that I saw out there was flowing away from 9 Putnam Park Road. It was flowing to the east, which is downhill.
David, can you go back? I don't know if that sounded, but that map that you're showing for Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Was it, you were saying it was going east, which, in what part, like, is in the, I know you don't want to speculate, but what part of an adjacency to the map to 9 Putnam Park Road was it? Was it in the corner? Was it in the middle of it? Was it?
Right, so I will go back to that image. Okay, so the stone wall is here where my cursor is running. The extent of the established lawn on that, on that property, it goes up to about here. I would say where that water was, perhaps it may have began, let's see, this is 48 here. So perhaps it was in this area here, just past the edge of the one, where that water appears to begin to run due east on the surface.
All right.
And I don't have any other comments at this time on the vice chair.
Okay, no chair. Okay, so I'm gonna open this to the public now. If anyone in this room have any questions? If so, please come forward and please come up here to the front. And could you give your name and address?
Should I sit?
It's a little
my
bit,
first
you
time at a
come closer to the,
Sure.
come
This
closer
way?
to the
Hello
microphone.
online.
And your
This is
name?
Ann Tucci. I live at 81 Putnam Park Road. So I grew up in Bethel, and recently moved back to Bethel. So I do have a couple questions. One was, we could probably look at the elevation of that to figure out the water, because if it's running away from the other structure, probably not going to be going uphill. But in terms of neighborhood, relationship building, and things like that, I just wanted to thank the commission's work for following through on these processes. The agendas are public, so the You can go right online. That March agenda did not include public hearing. It just had a note of the timeline of when those would be happening, which was the April date. So, it looked like it was on the agenda, but there was no notice.
We have it
Not
on
agenda
the
item.
agenda, yes.
Yes. The other piece is Putnam Park Road is listed as a Putnam Park Road, right? But it's also a state highway. You mentioned 1.66% for parking. I believe the state statute is 2%. So it just, I don't know all the regulations and codes because it is not my job, but it is my job to also raise the question because I just want to make sure, is there permitting that has to happen to the state? Because that is on the state highway, not on a Bethel public, like town road. So I didn't know if there were different applications for that process. But that was one question that I had. Because there is potential with a 1-bedroom home that 2 occupants would be living there, likely with 2 cars, because there's no walkable place to work there. So the assumption would be generally that people would have 2 vehicles living in their home. I don't really have a comment on affordable housing. I'm not opposed to it, not supportive of it. It is what it is. For a builder, though, it's not necessarily a goodwill action. They make market value off that work, so that's fine. But I am actually really concerned about the parking situation because our police force, our town, our safety, those parts, parking does matter. And the last thing I would want to see is a young person in affordable home, because you can apply for affordable home if you are a student or a young person that is just out of school. If there are multiple cars on the side of that road because they hop the curb, somebody could get seriously hurt. And I don't want to see that happen. So I just wanted to double check about the parking situation and that there is visitor parking lots or parking spaces, even if it was 2 spaces, that as a HOA or however they are sold, they can monitor that and support each other in that. But that was what I was hoping to see, and information related to that.
Thank you.
I don't think that's it. Other than when we're part of a community, this process is really important. So I'm speaking directly to all of you sitting here.
Speak to us and then they'll
Yes.
answer. Thank you.
All of that is just really important, that you are building relationships with the neighbors. It is generally a single family home street. So this is something new for the town. And good faith and goodwill do go a long way. So sometimes the aggressive language or any kind of body language like that is not appreciated. And it can go a long way to build relationships.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
And you will have an answer.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But was there anybody else who'd like to come up and speak?
If
Okay,
not,
how about
Madam-
online?
Yes, on online, Madam Vice Chair, I'm seeing Nico J has his hand raised.
You go, Jay?
Yeah, hey folks, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yes.
can.
For the record, Nicholas Jordan, Wolf Pits Road. I don't want to take too much time. I just had some comments and concerns about the landscape plan. Specifically, well, I just wanted to thank you all who are bringing attention to the water quality issues as well, to Laura and Mr. Ritchie, and everybody tending to that. It's very important. But as far as I'm a local ecologist, University of Connecticut certified master gardener, and local and regional ecologist. And the landscape plan, I just noticed, had a few misspellings, among other things, which may not seem important, but mostly what I'm concerned about is that none of the plants on there are native to the region. They're all introduced species, and one, the the Bradford Pear. I'm just going to bring up the landscape plan. Dave, could you bring it up for the people in the room, possibly? Thank you. And this is may seem, you know, insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but I don't know where things are with this application. I just wanted to draw attention for the public record that there are numerous misspellings here. Can people see the landscape plan in the room?
I'm about to bring it up, Mr. Jordan. Just bear with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, it should be up on the screen now.
Great. So in the bottom left-hand corner of the landscape plan, you can see the species of trees and shrubs that are proposed to be planted. One is listed as Warwy spruce, W-A-R-W-Y. I believe that's a misspelling for a Norway spruce. I'm open to corrections if need be. The second one is Branford pear, which I believe is misspelled and should be spelled Bradford pear, B-R-A-D-F-O-R-D. Green giant arborvitae, American boxwood, which is not an American indigenous species. It's introduced from Europe. And the hydrangea PG, it should be PG, P-E-G-E. Not to nitpick, just that it shows a little neglect, I think, and carelessness on the part of whoever produced this landscape plan, which should be noted for the record, but also the fact that the Bradford pear is also known as a calorie pear. It's noted on several neighboring states on their invasive species list. It's not yet on Connecticut's invasive species list technically, but it soon will be. I'm a tree and shrub expert as well. And they should revise this landscape plan to include native species, at least some, whether or not it's in our planning and zoning regulations yet to do so, maybe not, but it basically just shows like, to speak frankly, it's like a very, it's like neglectful is the wrong word, but it's a very cut and paste kind of landscape plan and plant choice. None of them are native. The whole landscape plan should be revised to include native species, at least 90%. That's what Newtown has adopted in their regulations. So I'd like to see that done. I just want to state that for the record because it's my area of expertise. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else? David, do you see anyone else?
I'm not seeing any other hands. Google Meet.
All right.
Yes. Yes. Actually, you know what? We'll do that.
Steve Trinkus for the record. I'll take responsibility for misspelling some of the landscape plants.
Check on your computer.
There's no spell checking CAD. There is in Microsoft Word, but so I'll correct the spelling as far as that goes. For the record, and I'm not trying to compete with the last speaker, I have a Bachelor of Science in Forestry, but I didn't do the landscape plan. The owner did, who was a landscape contractor. I don't disagree with native plants. However, native plants, particularly small herbaceous ones, are on the top 10 list of things deer eat. And you can plant native, but unless you spray them or otherwise protect them, they are mowed down by the wildlife. Unfortunately, that is a common occurrence with those plants. But I will correct the spelling. To address the comment of parking, DOT only has jurisdiction with the curb cut here, which is right at the location of the existing driveway. It's a little bit north, but that's the only jurisdiction DOT has.
I'm sorry, which one? What did you say? I'm sorry.
Oh, I said Connecticut
You're speaking so
DOT.
fast.
DOT only has jurisdiction of the curb cut on the Putnam Park Road. They don't have any jurisdiction over parking or anything else on this site. It's only what is in their right of way, which is what's called an encroachment permit for the driveway. That's the only DOT jurisdiction. Under 8-30G, you do not have to comply with municipal parking requirements. I believe Bethel is 2 spaces per unit. I've done many 8-30G, some large ones of 100 to 150 units. There are 1-bedroom and studio apartments in Stamford for one. And my client, who owns many projects like that, uses 1.25 spaces for a 1-bedroom and has never had a full parking lot ever. So we're using 1.66 spaces per unit. So we're well above that threshold. Regarding Todd's comments on the stormwater system, fine, we'll rip wrap the side slope. I'll add that to the plan as a condition of approval. I have no objection to it. I'm also going to put a fill specification on here and a compaction specification. So we're going to compact this so there will never be any infiltration into the soil. If you compact the soil to 95% Proctor density for that material, you basically make it concrete. So no infiltration will occur. So this is not and will not be an infiltration practice. Now, to go back to some of the health department comments, the septic system flow, I'm going to come up to the screen, is going in that direction. The stormwater management system is here. So the effluent does not go towards the stormwater system. The stormwater system does not go towards the septic system. So there is no issue with groundwater mounding. Groundwater mounding occurs when you put a stormwater system up or down gradient of a system where you're putting water back into the ground, and then that water will compete with the effluent that you're applying from a septic system. But groundwater mounding is not an issue on septic systems like this. Under DEP criteria, which right now is systems over 7,500 gallons per day, you do have to do a groundwater mounding analysis because under DEP, it's a performance-based approach to designing a septic system. The state health code, which governs this site, is a prescriptive approach. You calculate the required leaching area, you calculate what's called the minimum leaching system spread, you lay out the system, you lay it on the plan, and you go home. That's it. There is no magic here. The health department making this sound like it's doom and gloom, quite honestly, is fear-mongering, in my professional opinion, and has no place at this discussion. These are 2 4-bedroom septic systems. We could have done an 8-bedroom, single-family house on this site with the exact same systems. There's no difference here from an 8-bedroom house to 2 4-bedroom septic systems. Absolutely none. And yes, while Laura Vasile, under the state technical standards, has the ability to ask for groundwater monitoring, there has been no justification provided by the health department to say that the soil testing is inadequate on this site. We did roughly, I believe, 13 test holes on this site. We dug them throughout the entire site from all up in here, over in here, and over in here. So we made Swiss cheese out of this site to determine the soil suitability. So A, there is no inadequate testing. The testing is way more than you're going to see on a single family lot. It's common on a single family lot to do 3 or 4 test pits. We did 13 on this site. And we looked at all of the land area, and the southern end of this site, down here, the modeling is less than 18. That's why there is no septic in that area, because it does not meet code. And if we wanted to use that area, we would have to put in a curtain drain, put in groundwater monitoring pipes, and monitor it through the wet season, which is February 1st to May 31st, once a week. But we're not trying to do anything there. The other area, as I pointed out, the code is 18 inches. We're 23 to 24. We're not close to it. The bottom of these systems are out of the ground. They're just actually, the revised plan is just the bottom is actually right on grade. So we're not cutting into the soil whatsoever. This is the earlier set thing. That's all right. It's, but the bottom line is we're not doing groundwater monitoring. There is no justification for it. And as I pointed out in the last memo, the health department has not provided other lots in town with similar soil conditions where that was required. Just because this is an 8-30G with 6 1-bedroom units here does not raise this up to some unusual situation. You could do a 6-bedroom house here and I could get a permit tomorrow with a design here. So we're not doing groundwater monitoring. Regarding David's photographs, and I'm just gonna go back to the title page just to show the bigger picture. When we did the soil testing from about here all the way north, this is the guy's yard at 123 Milwaukee Avenue. The photographs David showed from that wet area looking up towards the wall were densely vegetated. So that little wet seep is not anywhere near the septic system. That's a key difference here. That's all yard. And when we dug the testing, we looked around adjacent properties from the wall to make sure we had nothing unusual sitting out there. It's also not uncommon on the southern side of this site, because this is where the shallower hard pan soils are. As the slope goes to the east, downhill that way, that hard pan sometimes will bleed out to the ground surface. And when it does, the perched groundwater table sitting on top of hard pan comes out on the ground surface. Doesn't make it a wetland. It's a groundwater seep. And this spring has been exceedingly wet. We had literally no snow this winter, but we had plenty of rain. I actually have a client in Westport whose property is pure sand, and her sump pump has been running incessantly all spring because the sand conveys so much water. Okay, because all the rain and it infiltrates. We've had a very wet spring. Modeling is an indication of seasonal groundwater. It is used in the code. It's used by every health department in the state of Connecticut to establish the seasonal high groundwater table. If we did not have modeling in the test holes, then yes, groundwater monitoring would be kind of justified because we have no evidence otherwise in the test pit. But all of these test pits, the modeling was very apparent right at the bottom of the loam layer. That is the determination used under the health code for maximum seasonal groundwater. Period. And again, 18 inches is the standard. We're not at 18 inches. We're not at 19 inches. We're at 23 to 24 inches. So there's no groundwater monitoring. And if it's not happy to the health department, you know, they can say no, and I will take an appeal to the state health department. That's my right as an applicant. But I have not heard one justification except to say, well, I can ask for it. I look at it this way. As an engineer, you provide proof of why you need it. And I have not heard that at this point, as far as that goes. So again, we'll put the riprap in around the stormwater system. I will put a fill compaction specification on it so that there is never any potential infiltration. I don't need to put a liner in it. I can overly compact the dirt so that nothing can go in there. Then it's an underground bathtub. And that's what the intent is to do. And that's it. So I think those are all the comments I have. Thank you.
All right. Do we go to the commission? I think so. Ken, you have any, I'm sorry. Where would you like to start? Go right ahead.
Yeah, I got a couple of comments.
Sure.
Unless you want to go.
Go ahead, Kenny.
One, this fight should have never been brought here. This should have been done behind closed doors in offices elsewhere. Wasting my time with engineers arguing with each other, which should have been done long before it ever got here. Either it meets the code for the town or it doesn't. Simple. Be done. Make the adjustments. I just can't believe this. 40 frickin' pages. I'm done.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I just one probably silly question.
Nothing is silly.
What looks like it used to be a swimming pool with the big tree in it.
Yeah.
Can you help me understand that a little bit?
Me too.
All right,
Please.
Mr. Draper, address it. Mr. Draper. Well, 4 of you were at the site, and you can
Mhm.
still see remnants of it.
Women, so it was a big,
Well, there was a hole in the
deep
ground,
puddle.
but you still saw remnants of the liner of the pool. Okay, now you may not have, Kitty, but I know you did, and Diane did.
Yeah.
Well, I was with Kitty, so
Okay. Oh, yeah,
I was
I'm
her.
sorry.
Together, huh?
I'm sorry. So he did, and Diane Ryan did. I kicked the piece that was still left on the ground. Okay, now it was a pool. I put it in a dumpster. From what I am understanding, Mr. Ritchie's out there saying, well, there's a big tree in it. Well, no, there's not a tree in it. There's a tree around it.
Oh, no, no,
Okay,
I can see that.
so, and trees do grow fast. And if there's a hole in the ground,
And if he's down to the hard pan, because obviously it's a few feet down into the ground, it could hold water. This, we all know that clay or hard pan, water doesn't go down through it. So it was a pool. Now, I don't know when the pool was done. Somebody just said they pulled the record from 1900. I don't know when it was done. I don't know when plastics were made first. I know there was a pool there because I picked it up and put it in a dumpster and took 3 dumpsters of garbage off of that site.
Right. Our question was, when we saw it, I mean, I think there was like, somebody said 24 inches of water there.
I didn't
But
say it.
no,
Nobody
no,
was
no,
going
no,
down
it
into
was
it.
in one of the comments. But, my only question was, I didn't see any liner. Why was the water still there? Does hard, okay, yes,
I'm not a
please.
soil
Does hard
scientist.
pan mean that the water will stay there and it won't drain? That's my question.
Let me, Steve Trinkus, I'm gonna draw you a little sketch if you bear with me for.
Sure, please,
So,
please explain to me,
yeah. Um,
then I can learn.
So typical soil profile, you've got the ground surface, you have topsoil loam layer, and then in this case, we have hard pan. Hard pan is a extremely compacted mix of silt, sand, and clay particles, sometimes some gravel, that is impermeable to groundwater. So rainfall, which falls on this surface, does go into the soil, hits the hard pan layer, and then follows the land slope downhill. It follows, it sits on top of the hard pan layer and just moves through the loam layer downhill to the stone wall, to the next guy, and that. So with this hole being down into the hard pan, rainfall is now falling into the hole. And yes, it's gonna pond within that hole because the hard pan does not infiltrate at all. Water will only move when there is a, what we call an energy line, basically uphill to downhill, and it ponds when it runs out of energy. In a hard pan soil, and we've seen this in test pits, if we have water bleeding into a test pit, you'll see it seeping in at that hard pan. And if you leave the hole open 2 or 3 hours, that water will fill up the hard pan, the test pit, up to that hard pan layer because it can't infiltrate. It's coming in above the hard pan, it drops in, and it just fills it up like a bathtub.
And how do you get rid of it?
Well, in an open area, you simply clean it out. As I said, Matt Pollock said it's appropriate to clean it out, scarify the soil, which means raking it with the excavator to loosen it, and fill it with select fill. Sand and gravel is what we use for the septic system. That has been approved by the state health department.
And then it won't happen again.
It won't happen again. You'll have no ponding because the
Right.
water will move through. The septic systems have to be separated because they're 2 separate systems, are separated by code, a minimum of 50 feet. We're at 65 feet, center to center spacing. Under the state health code, it is implicit in the design of the system when you meet what's called the minimum leaching system spread, that hydraulically the system functions fine. The whole intent of what the MLS was is it came out in 94 as part of the code. What it looks at is a square foot of soil on the downhill side of your system. And basically the shallower your soil to a restrictive layer, the hard pan, and the flatter the slope, the bigger the hydraulic factor, a number you get. So a slope that is 10% with 18 inches of hard pan may have a hydraulic factor of say 18. But when that slope is 2% and you have 18 inches of hard pan, that number might be 34. And basically what the state was looking at was the ability of that square foot of soil to accept water. So the flatter the soils, the shallower the restrictive layer, less water can go into it. Therefore, you have to spread out the system longer and longer. If you had bank run gravel out here with no groundwater or anything, the spread requirement would probably be 20 feet because there is no restrictive layer. But the water on the sand and gravel raises the system above the ground. The ground is scarified, so you get an interlocking between the different, the select fill and the original soil layer. The select sand, as the effluent goes into the leaching system, in a gravity system, it starts from the distribution box and spreads out. That's why I have the D box in the center. So the effluent goes both ways. And if you put it on the end, 90% of that effluent discharges within about 5 feet of the distribution box. So the rest of that system doesn't see any water at all for years until the biomat forms. Once it spreads out through the sand, it goes into the native loam soils above the hard pan, and that's the biologically active soil, and that's what treats the effluent. You know, phosphorus is held within the soil column within about 3 feet of the trench. Nitrogen is simply a dilution factor of rainfall falling above and over the system. There is no mandate of a requirement of nitrogen concentration at a property line under the state code. And it's also implicit, if you meet the spread requirement, that bacteria and viruses have ample time within the soil to die off. But again, as there is no public drinking water supply wells or individual wells down gradient of either of these systems, there is no risk to any, but to our property or to a down gradient property.
Okay.
Many septic systems, this one is, because it's required the MLSS, instead of being 15 feet from the property line, have to be 25 feet under the code. So, you know, this is no different. There's no magic here. This is no different than, you know, an 8-bedroom house in theory. And we could have subdivided this and done 2 4-bedroom houses here, and we're unlikely having this discussion. So, so that's a brief
Well, thank you
summary
for the
of how it
explanation.
works.
Okay, so,
Right. I don't want to get into comparisons of one engineering firm versus another. So I have what I believe is a very simple question. In your letter to the Planning Commission of May 5th, both as it pertained to the SLR comments and to the Department of Health comments as secured by your consultant, Civil One, categorically state that you will not address either one of those comments. But today we received a letter from you. And my question is, does this letter contain the answers to those comments, or are you still of a mindset that says you're not going to address those comments? So yes or no, very simple.
I am not addressing the Civil One comments because those could be applicable at the time we actually file for a building permit and a septic permit. At this stage of the game, as I stated early on, is suitability of the site. That's all we're asking for. When you see a subdivision, you don't get any more design information.
What about SLR's comments? Are those addressed in this response that we got today?
Yes, their last letter from last Friday, yes, they are.
Thank you.
And by the way, just, he did respond to a couple of Todd's comments this
you see
evening.
this about the riprap.
That will require further change.
I understand. I'm trying to clarify what this document contains.
My job is to make you work.
I know.
It actually, it's stated right at the top line there, the 2 documents that is in response.
That's it on my part.
Okay, Mike?
No, one of my questions, you just answered it by stating what you could, if you did subdivide this, how many single family homes you could fit here, what the zoning was there. That was my question, so I appreciate it.
Diane Ryan?
Hi.
Do you have any questions?
I was at the site, and I do want to say that I did see piece of liner or whatever. I did ask whether there was other liner in there, and he said, you want to put your hand in and check? And I'm like, no, I don't. And, you know, it still is standing water. My question is whether or not that's a public health issue, because it is more than 7 to 10 days. Because I know on another project that was brought up, you know, as something that Laura brought up in another letter for another project, you know, to check. And as far as the, I did also mention about the Bradford pear trees, not recommending them. I'm also a master gardener, UConn certified master gardener. And my other concern was there are a lot of invasive garlic mustard in the back there. I don't know if there's any barberry or other kinds of invasives like bittersweet that can become the size of trees, and how that might affect, if that's natural back there, if that's going to affect the septic areas. Those can be quite large. The other question I had was about the trees. Since they are so large and they've been growing a long time, just cutting them down is not going to necessarily affect all the root system that's under there and how that's going to affect the septic system with the soil. I know when we've taken out trees before, you know, things kind of sink there, and there's a lot of organic matter. It's hard even to grow grass. So my concern is that pool area that's between the two septic systems. I guess that's pretty much it. I did mention on the April 9th, it was actually April 9th was the first meeting, and when after Laura's letter, I had asked whether they were going to address those things. You can watch back on the tape, and they said they weren't going to. And I think if they had done that back then, we wouldn't be here this much longer. I don't know why there's an opposition to just doing that, what Laura had asked. And I think that would have saved a lot of time and a lot of money for everyone. There's a few different things, that were brought up that I think, need to be addressed. And I agree with Ken as far as, if you could have all gotten together and gotten this together beforehand, we wouldn't still be here working on this, this much later. So, I guess that's pretty much my comments.
Thank you, Dan. Bob Legnard?
Yes, I have several comments tonight. I want to thank the three experts who came tonight to spend the time here to give expert testimony to the town. They are our eyes and ears, technical eyes and ears, in areas that we as a commission are not expertise at. So I think at some point we have to listen to them and say, they're telling us what needs to be done to do this right. And if we do it right, you get one chance to do it right. It's like one chance to make a good first impression. You get one chance to do it right. Do it right. Get it right. Nobody wants to put a building in there. I think Timmy doesn't even want to put a building in there that's going to be a problem to him. So I think we need to get it right. Get it right. So all the experts agree, whether it's our experts or Steve as Timmy's expert, and get it right. And Kenny's right. We would save a lot of time if people could just get along and compromise, and say, I'm not always right, but I always have an opinion. That doesn't make it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Okay. Having said that, okay, my one big thing too, but David, can you bring back up the parking, please? And what, excuse me, the number of spaces you have provided?
10.
10. Okay. So there are what? 6 units.
6 units.
6 units. So I thought it said when we were there that outside of each garage there was going to be blacktop. So outside of each garage, somebody could park in the garage and outside as well. Was that not the case?
I didn't say that. No,
Yeah,
there's
you did.
parking outside.
Maybe you misunderstood what I said.
Or maybe you misunderstood what I said. Correct.
Okay.
One, obviously.
None of us are perfect. Okay, we got it now. So there's not going to be a space outside of each one.
What is on the site plan, Kitty, is.
Well, I'm asking.
Yeah, well, you guys have the site plan, so you see there's 1, 2, 3 on the side and six units on the side, that's 10.
Okay.
So there's 10 spaces.
Okay. Is there any chance now? I mean, seriously.
There's 6 in the garages and 3 outside spaces. Or 4.
Okay.
I went to
So-
Bethel schools. I can only count some.
Poor baby. So, normally, when we have a site plan that is on a state road, okay, the site plan doesn't go to the state for approval, because we've done, how many of these we've done with Route 6? So the state will not see this until after we have done it.
Correct.
Okay, so you're telling me that there are no provisions in state law that there should be parking on the street?
Oh, no, we're not proposing any parking on the street.
No, did you
well,
say that it would be?
That's the room there.
I
You
did
said
not
one.
say, no, I did not say anything about parking on the street. I simply said the only jurisdiction Connecticut DOT has is the driveway cut onto
Okay.
Route 58.
So.
That's the
you're
only
Kendall.
jurisdiction.
Okay, so what I'm just gonna say, is you have a nice piece of property there. Would it be difficult to add a place for 3 or 4 parking? I mean, you have six apartments here. These people could have to visit.
All right. So I'll address what you have to say.
I would
okay?
appreciate it.
One, if I could, I would. And we probably could. That enlarges impervious surfaces. Now the stormwater gets bigger. Retention area. There's number one.
Well, what about just doing something with riprap?
That's something between the engineers. I'm not going there. Okay. So there might even, I know. Okay. That's number one. Number two, Worcester Street, Jolly Woods, no problem with parking. Taylor Avenue, the biggest one that we have, I believe there's 27 spots and 18 units there. There's always a place to park. Good Hill, there's usually 2 cars in there and they're all 2 bedrooms and I can't remember how many parking spots are there. We have no issues with parking. Okay. If anything, what I've seen this commission do in the past, the parking with directly across the street is egregious to me. I mean, I don't even think you got 1 parking spot per unit in there, plus commercial spots. So to ask that, I think is quite an ask.
I'm just thinking of somebody who, let's
Well,
say,
we
if I had a
haven't had
child
that
moving into
problem,
that
Kitty.
apartment and I wanted to go visit,
The
I have to walk.
the thing is, if I've had that problem in the past, those aren't the only places I own.
No.
Okay,
Oh, I know,
that we
I
own.
know.
But if I've had that problem, then we would get that taken care of. And quite frankly, the project that we're doing right now is an 8-33 application. What is the parking on Asheville? There's 3 units there.
I know.
We have 3 garages.
Yeah, and a space in front of each because we have ample distance to the
Right,
road.
I know the space very well.
But we haven't had a problem with parking. If it was, then I would have said, Steve, you know what? Let's do 10 parking spots or 15 parking spots or whatever. So
But
I
I
see what
can-
you're saying. But on the other hand, Kitty, we're giving a really lot of one of your favorite things, green space. A
Oh,
lot
there's
of,
gonna be a lot of green space there. That's why I thought if there was a place, and I'm not talking about impervious surface, some way of finding a place for 4 cars to park, would there be there?
listen, if somebody has a
party.
party, they'll pull in the driveway and pull off onto a grass area or something, but it doesn't happen. Okay? Everybody thinks, oh, there's gonna be 2 people in a 1 bedroom. It doesn't happen. The chances of 6 units and 2 people in each unit, buy a lotto ticket.
And Kate, just I'd like to follow up Steve Prince for the record. You know, you would have to pave parking spaces. Again, you cannot use any of permeable pavers or permeable pavement because the underlying soils are not suitable for it. So you'd have to pave it, which means the stormwater system gets bigger, et cetera.
And you asked to go, you answered the
And you have less green space. Because
Well,
every parking space
Let
I
me
have
tell
to
you
have the
something.
aisle with.
That's the only first application I've seen in a long time that is green space to burn. All right? It does. Believe me. For me, on the record. Hey, I'm saying it on the record. David,
Yes, Madam Vice Chair.
do you think that all the questions have been answered for Laura and everybody, that we should keep this remnants for another week? What do you think?
Well,
I mean, we could ask the commission to come back next week.
if I may, I want to try to, make my comments in the interest of time. If I may offer, Madam Chair, an image from the recording that I took during the, site walk on, May 9th at this property, with respect to, that area that has been discussed. I'll bring it up on the screen here if you just bear with me. Just so that you can definitively say what was where and when. So this is, from the recording that I took during the site walk. I believe over here where my cursor is, you can see a portion of the liner that, Mr. Draper was talking about for the pool that was removed from the properties. And here is where you can see the water. the commission should consider whether or not the water that was visible was at the same depth as to when Mr. Ritchie made his site walk at the property, and what else may be submerged with respect to that difference.
That's the tree.
So is that the tree that's in the middle of the pond? I'm kind of curious, because it doesn't look like it's in the middle to me.
It moved.
Well, again, the commission should consider how deep the water was when they conducted the site walk, and how deep it was when Mr. Ritchie went out to conduct his site visit.
David, may I make a comment?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I mean, I'd be happy to provide, or maybe David can my photographs. I mean, they show 24 inches of water all the way up the trunk, you know, the side of that tree. So I mean, when I say in the middle of it, yeah, it was in contact with 24 inches of water. It wasn't centered on the pool of water, but we'll say it's growing off the edge into the pool of water where supposedly a pool was before. I don't know if and anybody could say what it was. There was a liner there. It wasn't. Maybe there was a pool there. Again, I said could be a long time ago, but today you have a 30-inch tree basically growing right into a pool of water, and it comes in contact with 24 inches of standing water naturally.
Excuse the applicant, please.
Okay, please.
Supposedly, if a tree's growing next to water, it's gonna grow mighty fast. Supposedly.
David,
This is ridiculous.
what do you want from us as a commission? How can we move this forward? Ask me what you want.
It's not for staff's place to
You gave us all this information here, so what are we doing with it?
I'm giving it, or it is being given to you to correspond with the soil testing that has not been conducted on the property. If soil testing if the applicant had conducted soil tests as part of their site investigations, you would know definitively how the soils behaved and what their composition was with respect to certain areas of the property. Without having a soil scientist give that information, you're essentially looking at photographs and recordings and relying on information that we as not being soil scientists are giving to you. So it's for you to decide whether or not you want that soil testing to be done. That is what is being advised of you, Mr. Parsons.
We did ask for it several times.
She asked for groundwater monitoring. As I pointed out before,
We asked
we
for
got
soil
Steve
testing.
Trinks for the record. We did 13 test pits on this site.
I know.
I'm
you
putting
have
my
it before.
signature and seal on these plans
I
that
know
the
it.
soils in the septic areas exceed the minimum requirements of the public health code. That's the bottom line here. We did more than enough testing on this lot to know what's going on. Groundwater monitoring, while she can ask for it, is not justified in this case, period. It has not been done on any other hard pan lot I've done a septic design for in Bethel, which probably is 10 or 12 over the years that I've practiced since '88. So if it hasn't been done on other lots with similar conditions, there's no technical justification to require it here. It's arbitrary and should simply go away. That's the bottom line.
I think we need to get some more information. You made that this has never been done before. I don't know if that's accurate, and we'll ask if the town.
I asked at the last.
If the director can comment on that. My recollection is that there was an application at Shelley Road. That application was denied and appealed, and that one of the reasons for the denial was because of the groundwater situation, and you contested that one. But I don't know that.
I didn't.
That's my memory.
The one that Tim had on Shelley Road, we didn't have issues with groundwater mining. The other lot that was left there probably did. But I'm just saying, I asked her in my last memo, Chuck, for evidence that this has been done on other properties with similar soil conditions. I did not get evidence to support, to back that up.
We can find out.
Well,
additionally.
we
Okay.
gave it 2 weeks ago and we have no answer.
Okay. I understand you put that on the record. We can look
Laura Vasile.
Hi, Laura Basile. I spoke with the State Health Department about Mr. Trinkus's comment, and if Mr. Trinkus wants to go through all the reviews that the Health Department has done for the commission, they are available to him. There have, as Attorney Andres has kindly said, Shelley Road is an example of yours, of the Health Department talking about the appropriate testing and assessment to make a determination. That's a classic example, so much work. There were ones on Chestnut Ridge Road that were done. There are even examples that people know of where they didn't have a long-term life and could have been looked at to see why, if better assessment was done, whether the septics would have been longer functioning, which I think they would have. So there have been times when we've said to you that we don't recommend that this lot be a lot. And I didn't write this, but I was trained to enforce it and to protect public health for over 36 years. And on page 36 of the manual, and I gave you the pages of the manual so that it would be very transparent for all the parties in the room, directors of health should advise against the creation of new lots that have unsuitable soil conditions per a regulation section I gave you. I don't want to, belabor this. And one of those is understanding where the maximum groundwater is during the wettest time of the year. It is difficult for all of us that Mr. Trinkus decided to soil test in a wet area August 30th in the most driest time for all the public health and civil engineers in the room. If you want to do a thorough assessment and do it one time, he could have done it in April, or even though the water wasn't as high as this year, it would have been a perfect time, and we could have come to you with our skill level, and we could have said, this groundwater is at the maximum level, and we have to adjust this plan. This isn't a simple plan. It's lovely. I don't have any agenda about it. My role is to serve you and serve the residents of Bethel. And I do not know what the maximum groundwater level is. I don't have an agenda with Mr. Ritchie as a civil engineer or with Mr. Pawlowski as an engineer, but I did ask for other opinions who saw the same technical expertise that I did and what I'm concerned about and have lived on your behalf for the residents of Bethel. If we get effluent in that surface water, whatever somebody looks at and determines, because all the septics below that are in very, very marginal soils on very wet lots. I want to prevent us having the adjacent property owners or the below property owners coming to me with a collection sample saying, I think you have effluent in this and I want you to correct it. So that's why in the beginning now, we don't create a hardship. We don't create a problem. The water has dropped even in the month. If we hit it in April, we could have, April and May got a great snapshot. We know what the highest water level is. Mr. Trinkus has honestly told you that a portion of the lot has unsuitable soils. So you don't have a lot with totally suitable soils. You have a portion of the lot with suitable soils, and the rest of it has very limited marginal soils, and he has shared that with you. So if we have to go to the Commissioner of Health, or if we have to go, who I've already tried to go to their representatives to save you time and myself, then I think we need to do that, because I believe in the decisions that I make for the town. And I believe and have the authority for that. And I do have the concerns that we don't know the wettest, the highest maximum groundwater level at this time.
Kitty,
Thank you.
we need to either close or continue this. We're gonna be here all night arguing with the engineers.
Excuse me, Ken, I have no problem with learning. And
But they're all
also-
arguing the same thing.
Ken,
They're arguing the same thing
No, we're
for an
not.
hour.
We're trying to determine whether,
Close it or continue.
whether we're going to have a soil scientist look at the property,
Then continue it.
then continue.
Pass it on.
One closing comment from Steve Trinkus. Years ago, the state of Connecticut strongly suggested to all health departments that no testing be done during July and August. It was a dry time. But come September 1st, you could go out and test. So it could be very dry on August 30th, but September 1st, I could go out and do testing. Again, the soils showed modeling. That's the evidence of seasonal groundwater. They're there in August, they're there in May, they're there in December. It doesn't matter when you dig. The soil conditions are visible. But the point is, years ago, the Bethel Health Department, you couldn't test July and August, but September 1st, you could go out, even though there was no rain for the past 60 days. So that pretty much takes that argument that I should have dug these in April right off the table, because it doesn't matter. And the engineer, a soil scientist, is going to look at and log the soil logs as a soil scientist, not as an engineering log. And engineers look at topsoil, silty loam, sandy loam, hard pan, glacial till, sand and gravel. There is no need to have a soil scientist look at these soil test bits. It's unwarranted. I've never done it in the past. And quite honestly, I've never had a lot turned down in my practice in over 40 years in any community for septic issues. I stand by my findings. This site is suitable. End of discussion.
Yes. Okay, that's fine.
Kitty,
Yes, go right ahead, Bob.
a couple of things. The pond of water in the middle of the property there could easily have been an old swimming pool where they put some kind of underlaying under it, you know, like a vermiculite that they used to put under the above ground pools that kept, you know, the bottom of the pool stabilized.
Right.
So that could be an explanation to that, but I think we need to find that out. Number two, I don't think the state would ever let you put parking spaces along Putnam Park Road.
No, they would not. No.
You couldn't angle them in, you couldn't put them lengthwise. If truth be known, you know, the state of Connecticut would like to get rid of every parking space on Greenwood Avenue. They don't like any of them.
That's true.
So that's it. So, do we keep this open and hope that we get everybody on the same page? Or do we close it and run the risk of, you know, possibly approving it or denying it without the complete expert testimony that we need? Thank you.
Well, okay, yes.
No. David, did we figure out what happened on the March agenda? It was just noted.
It was noted on the bottom. I
Yeah,
remember.
uh,
On the
yeah.
April agenda, what was it called?
It absolutely dug up the agendas,
Yeah.
and it did say, it had the word continue, but that was an error. That was a typo on the agenda.
There's another.
And-
It actually,
And we brought it up. And we brought it up at the meeting. Paul Shanley brought it up at one of the meetings and it was to be corrected.
No.
Exactly.
Just in terms of timing.
We have it on.
The hearing started last month.
April,
Right.
correct.
We were, tonight we're still.
April 9th.
Right, we just finished the 35th.
Right.
And I was a month off by that continuation.
Got it.
Okay, that's good.
Can I ask one question?
1 second.
Okay,
We're gonna ask that the hearing be held open. In the spirit of Bob's Legner, who's up there, we're gonna ask that the hearing be held open. We're gonna provide you with the drawings that address Todd's suggestions, as Steve said that he'll adopt. We will ask Jim McManus, our soil scientist, to take a look at the site vis-a-vis the question of soil conditions. And that's about it. So I think, you know, we'll address those issues.
My question is now, this commission is, we're about to face a very heavy time. Would you mind if we had this on at not a regular P and Z night, but another Tuesday night? Now, no, I'm serious.
So no, that's an offer to accommodate and keep your
Okay,
schedule.
right.
So.
Now,
Yeah.
we have,
Plenty of
we
it.
have,
Said for me, you could do it any Tuesday night.
How long do you need for your soil
how long do you need to get it done?
I'm hopefully he'll pick up his phone, but he could be on vacation.
We need 2 weeks minimum.
2 weeks.
Minimum.
to get.
And if it's
Jim out
not
there.
one, it'll be somebody else.
Okay, so should we say 3 weeks?
No.
So we can have it, no, but I mean, that would mean having it, no, please, that would mean having it at our next meeting, which is going to be very busy.
2 weeks is
So-
28.
Right. May 28th, which is a regularly scheduled.
It's a regularly
All right.
scheduled meeting.
This one. Okay, so
All right, then-
we'll
then,
shoot for that,
yeah.
May 28th.
No, she's saying
I-
not on the
Oh, you don't want on the 28th.
Special, you're talking about having a special. meeting.
Yeah, having on another
So you're
Tuesday,
talking about not
What
between
about the
now and
Tuesday?
the 28th, but maybe
the Tuesday after it.
That'd be
But
the
it would be the
first-
only,
that would be
it
the
would be the
first
only
Tuesday
item on our agenda.
June 4th.
June
That's
4th.
correct.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes,
Yeah, that
Is that
works.
okay?
And for that, we're requesting that you, or we're granting an extension of the 35 days to take us through that June, at least through that June 4th meeting.
I thank you for that. I thank you for your cooperation. And I thank everyone for your patience. So we are,
Madam Vice Chair,
yes,
before this public hearing is continued, I believe it's worth the commission, formally scheduling that special meeting
right.
for June 4th.
June 4th.
So that this.
So you want to take a motion or something?
I would advise a commissioner raise a motion
Okay,
to
I-
schedule that.
I'd like to make a motion to schedule a meeting for June 4th for, I'm sorry,
Continue.
a continuation of the public hearing for Tim Draper, 9 Putnam Park Road, 830G Affordable Housing, 6 units. May I have
And
a second?
everybody bring their best offer.
And
Yeah,
what
but-
is,
Coffee and cake. Go ahead, have a second.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
And just to be clear, Madam Vice Chair, that would be held at PM meeting room D.
Yes, do I finish the motion?
I'm sorry.
Anyone opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Commission.
Thank you. Okay, folks,
Don't run off.
I would like to, call a 5-minute recess, please. Please. Please.
Hold the recording.
For a 5-minute recess.
Yes, I made the motion.
You need a second?
Would you
Madam
second?
Vice Chair.
Would you second?
Second, I'm not, I wouldn't say.
What's this thing?
Madam Vice Chair.
All right, I'm going.
We need to have a motion on the floor to pause the recording, Madam Vice Chair.
Yes, please. Yo, that too, please.
Hey, Scroll, before you go.
Would you second the second other motion, please? To second.
seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much, Diane. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
Lounge.
Yes, all set.
All right, I'm gonna reconvene, the May 14th, 2024, Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Onto our second item of the agenda, 18 Stony Hill Road, an application by Gayatri Corporation for site plan special permit excavation, fill permit, and text amendment.
To appear May 3rd, 2024, and May 10th, 2024, public notice. The Bethel Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on May 14th, 2024, in Conference Room D of the Municipal Center, 1 School Street, Bethel, Connecticut, at 7 p.m. to hear the following. Gayatri Corporation for property located at 18 Stony Hill Road for a site plan, special permit, and text amendment. The proposal consists of construction of a second hotel building on the site and renovation of the existing hotel. Text amendment section 63E2C and E wall signs. A link to review the materials can be found on the town's website. The public may send comments via regular mail and email to landuse@bethelconnecticut.gov. Parking for hearing is located to the rear of the building. Paul Shanley, Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, before you begin, could I just make note that, most town departments have responded in regards to the application with comments and recommendations, with the exception of the police commission. Police commission is meeting on Wednesday, this week, and they should have, I'm sorry, I've been those notes for you. they should have their comments done at that time. Due to the volume of work that we've had within the office itself. And if I recall correctly, I have had at least 2, possibly 3 meetings with the applicant prior to the submittal of the application for a free application review. Most of my comments I don't have done for the next hearing, next portion of the hearing, and they'll pertain to the text amendment to the sign regulations. Thank you.
Give the floor.
Thank you. Amanda, is it possible to expand the image, the presentation?
Ooh, I can do that.
David can do that?
Yes.
Okay, good evening. My name is Peter Olson. I'm an attorney with an office here in Bethel at 275 Greenwood Avenue. My firm name is Land Use and Conservation Counsel. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant and owner of the property, Gatry Corporation, represented by the Patel sitting in the front row here. We also have with us tonight Maura Wan of 72 Architects, who's the architect on the project, and Bill Kenny of Bill Kenny Associates, who's the landscape architect for the project. You have 2 applications before you. The principal application is for a new hotel structure to be located behind the existing hotel at 18 Stony Hill Road. The image you have on the screen there is the existing hotel labeled Days Inn. This application is a site plan and special permit application. We also have a minor text amendment application concerning signage, which relates to the new hotel, basically. I have the legal notices that were sent to abutting property owners to submit for the record. The legal notices apply only to the site plan and special permit. The text amendment does not require a legal notice to abutting landowners because there are no abutting landowners for the text amendment. In November of last year, this commission approved a different text amendment application. It was our application, Gatry's application, concerning height in the Route 6 zone. That amendment allows hotels, motels, and motor hotels to be a maximum height of 4 stories and 50 feet, provided the property abuts I-84 and the average grade from the street to the facade of the building drops by at least 10 feet. This allows the 4th story of that building to be hidden by the grade and essentially making it visually a 3-story building. So we do appreciate the commission's consideration on that text amendment. It allowed a design of the hotel building that allowed for much better utilization of the property itself. Site parking areas, additional landscaping, all worked better when we're allowed to build a 4-story hotel. So for tonight, we anticipated that we wouldn't get started until somewhat late. And also we anticipated we wouldn't receive engineering and health comments, detailed comments until late last week, early this week. So our presentation tonight will be brief, we hope, and we're going to focus just on architecture and landscaping. At the next meeting, we'll have our revised plans submitted. Maybe we'll get comments on those. But we'll incorporate all the engineering comments and health comments that we've received, if the police commission comments, staff comments, into a new revised set of plans. We'll have our engineer and our traffic engineer here at the next meeting. I didn't even bring them tonight. We just brought Maura and Bill. So this is the street frontage of the existing building, which we may come back to this as we go through our presentation. This is a view from further east on Stony Hill Road. Oh, sorry, David. Now we need to zoom out.
Well, then I find it trees.
I thought there are 3 existing images, but whatever.
Okay, negative.
So this is sort of a colorized site plan, just to overview, give you the overview of what we're proposing, but we do need the whole thing on the screen. Getting there.
This is as
Oh, lost it.
just bear with me. I'm gonna have to bring it up through a different, application.
Making David's life hard is what we're doing.
That's okay.
A little bit more every day.
Oh. Okay. That was sheets 4, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Aha. Good job. Okay, so this is a colorized version of our site plan. It's very simplified. We have the existing hotel building in the front, which essentially remains the same physically. There's literally some improvements that Maura will go through on that. And then the new hotel will be constructed in the back. There is a grade change, which means we qualify for the text amendment. So the new hotel will be set down quite a bit from the road. We have parking all the way around the existing hotel. You'll note we have Interstate 84 here. And there's a parcel of land here that was originally taken as part of the Interstate 84 construction, but was never used. And the dedication of Interstate 84 only goes to this white line right here. But the state continues to own this land. So there's drainage that comes from neighboring property, runs through ours and onto that. And obviously there's grade change continuing down to 84. So we've initiated a discussion with state representatives about acquiring this land. As you can imagine, the state does not move in a prompt and efficient manner. So I don't know whether we'll get that done before we have to build.
Not speedy.
But we're gonna try. Our site is designed right now, assuming we don't acquire it, which requires a fairly significant retaining wall on the rear of the property and to build things up. If we can acquire it, then we can grade down onto that property, deal with it in a much less expensive way. But for now, this is what we have. If we are able to acquire that, we'll bring a site plan revision back to you, obviously. It didn't advance the slide. So David, could you please advance the slide? And I'll pretend I pressed the button and it advanced. Okay, let me turn it over to Maura Wan of 72 Architects, who's the project architect. And she'll go through the next few slides at her discretion.
All right. Good luck to me with the technology.
Just
So-
say, David, please advance the slide.
Fantastic.
That works great.
Great. So my name is Maura Newell-Wan. I'm principal architect at 72 Architects in Danbury. We're excited to be part of this project to improve the aesthetics of Stony Hill and introduce this new hotel. The architectural design of Sleep Inn, of course, comes from the corporate architectural language, but this is showing their architectural language adapted to this specific building. This is the actual building proposed, the size, proportion, height, and location on the site of the building we're proposing out back. I love the clean, modern lines, the different textures, the undulating volume of the facade. I think it's a nice looking building, and it'll be great for town. We go one. I actually don't remember what order these are in, David. So let's take a look. CAD elevations. I have some minor revisions based on some updates from corporate for the proposed elevations. So it's like an update of that sheet, or actually it is that sheet.
Maura, on this, can you just go through the dining area in the bottom right? That all works.
Absolutely. So on these 2D elevations, you're seeing the entrance to the hotel here with a covered canopy. There's a sort of almost a porte cochere where you get dropped off and come in from the rain. On the right-hand side, there is the breakfast lounge area, and we'll do a covered outdoor patio space. And so the wraparound windows on the first floor are for the breakfast space of the hotel.
This face of the building is looking at the other hotel.
Correct. This is facing the back of the existing. Yep. Exactly right. Let's see what's next, David. Great. Yep. Floor plan. So you can see the covered entrance here into the vestibule for the breakfast area. There's a mix of different configurations and styles of hotel rooms, suites, and typical rooms, queens and kings, and accessible units as required by code and as wanted by everyone in town to make this more usable. So we have accessible units on each floor, including an accessible king unit right here. We have guest laundry and a fitness center and staff laundry and service spaces. And we could do the next one, David. As we go up, the second, third, and fourth floor are entirely dedicated to hotel room spaces. We could just flip through these. Slight variations in which units are accessible and which units are kings or suites, but basically the same idea of hotel rooms going up. Let's see.
the new building coming next.
Okay, great. Great, okay. Now we're stepping back out to Stony Hill. One of the exciting parts of this project is this opportunity to update the existing building, right? And so what we're doing is taking the language of the new building, the more modern lines and the geometric massing of the building, and applying that to the front facade. So we're doing like an orthogonal arch design over the front to conceal the existing gable end, make it look more modern, update it. We're mimicking the materials of the new building as well, and the colors with the dark gray, light gray, medium gray, wood look, siding, and other modern details, just freshen up the front facade. This is a view from Stony Hill. And you can see because the hotel in the background drops down, you could barely see it, right? It pops over the top, barely. Can we see the next one, David? From the other angle, now when you're driving west, you could see it a little more through the back, but it really is almost concealed by this front building. And you can see how the height works out. This building drops down to the rear level walkout, and then this is a full story below in compliance with the zoning regulations. And there's a bus shelter. Thanks. So we're
People
updating.
with that children are gonna love that.
Yes. So we're updating the Stony Hill experience as well. We've got the town light fixtures along the edge. We've got a new bus shelter, sidewalk, update the streetscape there. These are CAD elevations for the front building, and I have these for the record as well. Thanks. So this drawing is showing the front as it is now with the gable end and sort of geometric details on the facade that were 100% fashionable at that time. And so now we're coming back with sort of a more modern look to rebuild the facade.
What time was that for?
When it was so fashionable.
Yes.
I don't want to get put on the spot in case those were installed 10 years later. They were, I'll just assure you they were great. Okay, we'll do the next page, David. You can see as we march around the building, the existing and the proposed, we're just updating it and coming in with some more modern lines to break up the facade where it's not a homogeneous sort of aesthetic. Now we're going to come back and interrupt it with different materials, add some visual interest to that facade. Okay. And the rear as well. So the rear now is quite a long facade and it's uninterrupted. Hasn't mattered because it's the back of the building, but all of a sudden our new building is looking at this building. So we're going to come back and update the materials, add some visual interest, some cedars kind of screening or something to give some privacy to the folks at the ground level. And again, just add some interest and break up the height and width of the facade. Floor plans, we're not doing interior work. At the front building, we're focusing entirely on the exterior. We'll come forward with these new arches and we'll make it work with the doors and the stairs, but we're trying to not touch everything inside.
Okay, you want to show the material boards?
Sure, yeah. The materials for the new building are pretty exciting, actually. This is all from the corporate. Now, some of this we've all seen before, the synthetic stucco and all the different grays. This is the fun accent color. Yeah, and I love that. And this is something new, actually, that I hadn't seen, which is really exciting. This is a wood look stucco product from Stowe Company. So I'm excited to see this installed. I think it's really interesting. Happy to pass this around. I don't know if you guys want to keep this for the record or anything. So Building will be fully in compliance, obviously, with fire code, accessibility, latest energy codes. This product allows us to do a nice layer of continuous insulation along the whole exterior. It'll be drainable EFS system, which is good for ventilation, as well as the thermal properties of the product. So
Is the front building, I know you're you're dressing up some of the exterior, is that being upgraded at all from an energy perspective?
that is not part of our scope at this time. Do you guys
Thank
want to keep this stuff?
Thanks, Nora.
You're welcome to.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you point that one of those towards the screen so we can see?
Take care of my fun samples.
Cameras up.
Okay, how's that? So
That's the wood.
interesting because it looks like, it does look like wood. This is called weathered walnut, and it's a synthetic stucco product, but it's actually dimensional as well. It's a dimensional wood look. Can I see that fun purple blue?
The purple blue.
Oh, yes, of course.
Diane, we're gonna keep them here in the office, so when you get
Okay.
back, you can come down and check them out.
Okay.
Is that fun accent color, the purple blue and the stucco. I'll see if I get the light to shine on it. There
Yeah,
you
I
go.
can see.
Yeah,
Thanks, Nora.
sure thing. Thank you.
I'd like this Bill Kenny to come up and address the proposed landscaping. And David, if you can pull that landscaping plan back up.
Good evening, I'm Bill Kenny, I'm the principal of William Kenny Associates in Fairfield. I'm a professional landscape architect. And we were pleased to be involved and help with the landscape of the property. We took into consideration surrounding properties and with the commercial on either side and it's 84 to the top and Stony Hill to the bottom. We don't have a heavy screening with residential properties nearby or anything like that. And we started with the streetscape with the enhancements that are happening with the sidewalk and the bus building shelter. There's existing mature flowering trees along here, the Bradford pears, that are in pretty good shape. And so we're planning to keep those and there's an existing driveway here that's being eliminated. So we're gonna put a new tree in to fill the gap where the driveway was. There, and some other things to consider is there's quite a few overhead wires out along the curb lines. So those existing trees are not big shade trees extending into the wire. So we're sticking with that scale.
Put something in different.
I'm sorry?
Put something in different.
We did. I know Bradford, we put in a native
I'm
hawthorn.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's fine. Yeah,
It just stopped.
yes. And I will say that nearly all the plants we're proposing are native to the Northeast. We're using some cultivars, but a lot of the species, or they're all native species, some are cultivars. And then otherwise we're planting to help provide shade in the parking. So that wherever we can, we're introducing new trees and then creating some garden spaces, particularly with the existing building where we have a couple of garden spaces here with a pergola and a little fire pit, fire table as an outdoor gathering space. And yeah, just planting where we could fit it in, a variety of native ground covers, shrubs, trees, shade trees, as well as flowering trees. Some evergreen eastern red cedar in the back corner here. That's about it.
Thanks, Bill. David, can you go back to the rendering of the proposed building? I think it's slide 4. Slide 5, I guess. That one, yes. Okay. So the other application before you is for another text amendment. The existing regulations on signage limit the number of facades on which you can put signs to two wall signs per tenant. So for us, there's only a single tenant. It's just a hotel, one tenant, but we probably need 4 wall signs, 1 for each corner of the property. The proposed amendment provides that where there is a single tenant, we could do 4. So if our building was occupied by 2 tenants, the regulations would allow us to do 4 different signs, but we only have 1 tenant.
Wall signs, explain, please.
A wall sign is a sign affixed to the wall of the building.
But, so
So,
like more than one hotel sign?
yeah, so we're talking about this right here, where it says sleep in, okay? This rendering shows one on this side.
Right.
You can assume this rendering would show one on the back corner facing
Oh.
I-84,
Oh,
which
84,
is,
that would be a good
it's a-
idea. Right.
but there may be a need to have one on this facade as well. We're not showing one here. Flexibility. But second, the regulations specify that the signs can be located no higher than the second story. Since we have a 4-story building and we'd like the sign into the top, because it would look pretty dumb to put that sign down on the second floor. Nobody would see it, especially on the I-84 side. So what we've proposed is that when there's a single tenant, again, we're limiting the scope of it, that the signs be allowed at the highest story allowed by the regulations, in this case, the 4th story. So again, there's 2 requests. The first is to allow it to be up that high. And second is to allow 1 on each facade, so 4 in total. I don't know if eventually we'll end up with 4. There isn't one shown on this rendering, for example. So, but it may be that corporate says you got to do it. So that's the text amendment request. So that's all we have for tonight. I don't know, did we hit half an hour? Okay. We're happy to answer any questions that you have. But otherwise we'll come back and talk about engineering and traffic at the next meeting. Great.
That was my dad. A couple of questions. Backlit signs, these are gonna be illuminated or flooded?
They're not flooded. I think I'm going to turn it over to Maura to answer it. But I think there is some lighting that comes from the bottom up the side of the building.
Yeah, so there's a couple different kinds of lights. Everything will be LED, and the sleep-in signs themselves are internally illuminated, and there's a couple different varieties that we'll get into the specs of when we come back for a signage permit. But there's no uplights on them; they just are glowing. And so these are the different, whether we do white on black or black on white. Well, obviously we're looking at doing light on dark, but everything will be LED and high efficiency. There's also some accent ribbon lights, LED ribbon lights that will be hiding, so that like there's a vertical glowing panel or something like this, but everything will be concealed and in compliance.
Don't go away.
Okay.
In the front elevation, it just shows a very slim ribbon of this parapet. Right, so this particular sign would not be seen, well, unless you're coming.
Oh, right, when you're on Stony Hill.
Yes.
Yes, so right, you barely see this building if you're coming from the west.
Right, so what's the value of having a sign that you can't see?
You can see it.
Yeah. Can we jump
Not
ahead
according
back
to-
to Stony Hill?
What slide would you like to go?
Both renderings, the renderings from the front building, from Stony Hill Road.
Sorry, I don't know the page.
The
David.
front elevation from Stony Hill.
You did see the very tip of that blue.
The rendering.
I noticed that too. How about this one?
Yeah, there.
There
You
it
do
is.
get
I know
that.
it.
So we can barely see it here.
But you need to look at the next one as well.
Yeah, there it
Yeah.
is.
So
right
that's
there.
looking basically
You
direct.
sleep, but you don't see in.
Yeah, it's right there.
And then one more
You don't
page,
see the
David.
end, Yeah.
And from this one, I pan over here, you can see the
From the angle.
facade. Yeah.
The angle you do.
Yeah.
Now, you have a particular, and I know this is not a sign meeting review. You have the sleep in, but then in the front building, you have a different branding.
Correct. So within the family of hotels, and I could defer to Kenny to elaborate, but basically within each family, there are different levels, forgive my using the wrong word, like the Corolla and the Camry. There is the sleep in and the Econo Lodge are part of the same family of hotels.
Okay, and so then you would have 2 separate.
Right, they have different branding.
Brands.
Yes, exactly right. But we're
The signs along the frontage are not wall signs. So the text amendment that we're asking for is for wall signs to put on the rear one. But then you can see the signage
this
on the
guy.
front there. That's a ground sign? Is that what we call it?
Yeah, but the Econo Lodge, the red sign.
Econo Lodge.
Yeah, we are
sure.
proposing
That
these.
is a
But
wall
but
sign.
that would comply with the zoning regulations as they're currently written,
Right.
because it's no higher than the second story, and there's only one.
Right.
So that's
Educate me here.
fine.
Do the regulations limit the square footage of the sign?
Yes.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do, always do. Yeah.
Yep, we'll be within that limitation. Not a problem there.
Are you proposing a street sign? Or just?
There's one there now, but.
And said for the Econo Lodge, is there gonna be one for sleep in as well, or?
Oh,
Again,
that's a
that
good
would all,
question. Yeah, but sorry, Beth.
I'm sorry,
Well,
that would all be
pertains-
taken care of at the time that they're ready to do sign permits. The Planning and Zoning Commission, outside of the good questions that you're already asking, it's more concerning about where the location is in relation to the property, how it's illuminated, how you want to illuminate it, and
Right.
things of that nature.
Right.
But it also pertains to if there's a sign out front, do I think they need 4 more on the side of the building?
Correct.
I'm just asking that
And is the
question.
sign on front flooded or is it backlit?
This is an existing sign to remain. I believe it's internally illuminated.
It's internally
Mhm.
illuminated.
There's one there already.
Hold on one second. We have too many people talking. Kenny, can you come in for a minute?
What's that?
Can you come in for a minute? Can you state your name and address for the record?
Oh, Kenny Patel, 8 Boston Court, Newtown, Connecticut.
Okay, and you're affiliated with Gatra Corporation?
Yes.
All right, why don't you talk about the existing sign right now?
Yeah, so the existing sign is just as you see, Econo Lodge, internally illuminated. But, you know, at the completion of the new structure, there will be a dual sign. And so we don't have like the exact specs on what that would look like. But obviously it would be, you know, probably the similar square footage, but some sort of internally illuminated one that would show there's an Econo Lodge here and a sleep in on the same lot.
Either straight or maybe side by side.
Exactly.
whichever.
Yeah.
Just 2 more questions here. Just bear with me. I'm new at this. Okay. Switching subjects, you have the bus stop.
Mhm.
Is there a cut into the curve to allow the bus to pull in, or is this a 1-lane road?
Right.
I think we want to defer that next meeting when we have the engineer and the traffic engineer here.
Uh-huh.
But you can look on the plans to see how that currently works. There's a fairly wide shoulder there.
Yeah.
But we're not proposing a pull off for a bus.
That's what I was asking. You're not proposing a pull-off.
It is what it is right now.
They're just adding a shelter.
We're adding a shelter on, and I don't even know if that's in the right of way or on our property, but
Payphone there.
Okay, and then the last question that I have is pertaining to your parking and your landscaping. What are you doing with your snow stack?
we'll talk about that at the next meeting when the
Okay.
engineer's here. Sorry to split it up like that, but
No, fair enough.
it made sense to not have them come if we weren't gonna address it today.
Real two quick questions. The front building, really architecturally tying it back to the back building. Are you looking at doing anything with the roof shingles and or the railing system out front?
So we're looking to paint the railings
Okay.
to update them. The roof is brand new. So
Okay.
at this time, we're not looking to replace the roof, but in 20 years, when it comes up, Kenny's gonna call me and ask me what color.
What color?
You're gonna be working in 20 years?
I'm gonna be answering the phone from Mexico.
Did you have any questions?
Thanks
No,
for
I
the
don't have any
reminder.
questions at this time.
Bob or Diane, any questions?
I have a question, Dave, Peter, would it be easier for you to get a variance on that sign, or you feel you need a text amendment?
I never do variances if I don't have to. That's my general philosophy.
So much work.
Because, well, no, it's really hard to demonstrate a hardship.
Yeah.
And that's, we would need to show, and I don't think we've got a hardship. You know, we're asking for a change in the regulations. The big one is the 2nd story to 4th story, right? That's the most important one. If we had to live with 2 facades, maybe that's fine. I don't want to be in a position where the corporate branding people come to us and say, you've got to have a sign on each side of the building for full visibility from I-84. Right, that's where I don't want to have that problem.
Well, like dealing with corporate brands though, I mean, you could always come back and say the local jurisdiction is not allowing me to do it.
Sure, but we're here now asking you to allow us to do it.
Well, I mean, it doesn't look like a billboard sign. It blends into the building.
Correct.
So you did say that in addition to the sign, you're looking to have accent lighting It sounded like it was running vertically.
Yes, it looks like, so basically to make this purple glow at night, there'll be lights tucked in around the facade to have this, and it's not like glow in the dark or something. It's just some light that washes over it so you could see the accent color at night as well.
Like the
It's-
northern lights,
And understated. Pardon me?
like the northern lights we just had.
Absolutely. That's where that giant spotlights aimed up into the sky. No, no, just very subtle highlighting, basically.
Right.
Anything else?
I just had a quick question. I guess this is the first I'm seeing these more detailed plans. On the document page, it was, some things for not for construction. And there were some pages with some things saying 3 floors, some saying 4. So you're doing 4 floors and it's 68 units, 68, yeah,
That's
hotel
correct.
rooms? Okay.
That's correct.
And, I know the fire department said no concerns. Do you have sprinkler system, built into this?
Yes, the latest building code requires that all residential uses, including hotel rooms, be fully sprinklered. So this will be sprinklered in compliance with the more strict NFPA 13 system.
Is this gonna have a full restaurant or is it just a breakfast?
Let me have Kenny
Yeah.
answer that question as to what they're doing.
Yeah, this will just be it's called a hot continental breakfast. So coffee, bagels, pastries that you can toast, reheat some, prepackaged sausages.
For your
That sort of
customers only, like.
Of course, yeah, just for guests of the hotel.
So no liquor license or anything like that?
No liquor license, no.
Okay.
Eric, any questions on there?
All good here.
If there any commission comments? Open up to the public. The public? Anyone online? Have any questions or comments from the public?
I'm not seeing any raised hands at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So okay with the applicant, we'll continue this public hearing until the next meeting, May 28th.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
See you in the end of May. Okay. So,
All right, we will move on to the next public hearing, which is for Sri LLC site plan special permit.
here, May 3rd and May 10th, 2024, public hearing. The Bethel Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on May 14th, 2024 in Conference Room D of the Municipal Center, 1 School Street, Bethel, Connecticut, at 7 p.m. to do the following. Tree Re LLC for property located at 140 Rainwood Avenue for a site plan special permit to construct 2 additional floors to an existing structure and parking reduction for shared use between 2 properties. The property can be found in the assessor's records as map 22, block 30, and lot 7 and 8. The link to review the materials can be found on the town's website. The public may send comments via regular mail and email to landuse@bethelconnecticut.gov. Parking for the hearing is located at the rear of the building. Paul Shanley, Bennett.
All right, and as agreed upon by the applicant's representative, Attorney Olson, this will be continued to our next meeting as well on May 28th. All right.
Very good.
On to the business meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
can I make a request that you move, Mr. Zuckerman, 36 Stony Hill as the next item on the agenda?
The work session?
Work session, review of farms at Stony Hill, 36 Stony Hill Road concept plan. We got the next item on your agenda.
Sure.
Well, yes, to see somebody.
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know, but I'm just asking because he's the last member of the public,
I understand.
last,
Yeah, sorry.
All right, well, for the record, Kenny left after the first,
Right.
the Draper public hearing.
Mhm.
So I will be seating Doug Cooney, moving forward. And we will move the work session ahead of the business meeting. So let's hear what you got for 36 Stony Hill.
Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Good, appreciate your patience.
Sets up as an easel.
Excellent.
Good evening, Wayne Zuckerman from the Farms at Stony Hill, Sterling Properties out of New Jersey. The requests for this evening are basically, the reason for being here is the consideration of the 3.2 acre parcel that currently the Farms at Stony Hill has in yellow at the front of our project. Currently, if you haven't seen the project yet, this is just the current, this is as of today, is where we are in terms of the property and what's going on with construction. The 3.2 acre property that sits at the front of Stony Hill Road, indicated here, is currently approved for a medical office building of approximately 20,000 square feet on 2 floors. With the current environment, we don't know if that's going to be a viable commitment in terms of the medical office. And then subsequently, I guess within the last year or so, in front of Route 6, heading from Newtown, I believe past our property, has an upzoning in terms of density, with a provision for a 20% set aside for affordable housing or workforce housing. The proposal that we would like to do, and this is just a rendering, but this is a property that we completed in Middletown, New York, where we have retail below residential apartments. I believe the zone on that Route 6 calls for only retail or commercial on the first floor, but that residential can be built above it. There used to be a 4-story zone, which I believe the property down closer to across from the Big Y has a component that's 4-story, but that was then taken away. So now we just have to consider a 3-story product that'll be on that on Route 6. The understanding is that if we can get somewhere between 30 and 40 apartments above the retail, then we have a nice project, with the understanding, and I've spoken with Beth, if there was a consideration of putting that affordable component just on the additional units, but since we don't have a 5-acre minimum, we have to spread out that 20%, meaning we have 117 units now under construction, no affordable. Should we get 30 or 40, so if we increase it to roughly 150 units, 30 of those units would have to be spread out throughout the entire community. So in this consideration, and again, I believe it is properly zoned at this point. That is our proposal to the board.
What is the size of those two buildings?
That was what I,
They roughly have a 10,000 square foot footprint.
Each? Yeah.
Each. So we could go with the 20,000 foot footprint, but Mike, I would say that it'd be nicer to break it up so that as if one drives by, it'll be, see through as far as.
I'm sorry,
so 2
I'm
buildings.
not following. You originally had 20,000 square feet,
One building.
one
20,000.
building, an MOB, and now you're proposing 2 buildings, only 1 floor or 3 floors?
3-story.
With a total of each, how many square feet?
Well, the footprint itself is 10,000
footprint-
foot. Correct.
So then it would be 30,000 and 30,000.
Approximately, yes.
All right, so it'd be 60,000 square feet versus the original proposal, which was a total of 20,000. Am I following that correctly?
That had a 20,000 foot footprint.
Okay. All right, I understand how you're using footprint.
Correct.
Got it.
I don't, again, we were not involved with the medical office building. I don't know what they were proposing. They did not come in as our tenant to make application. However, that really, to me, goes away. It's the essence of
as long as we comply with our setbacks from the road, our parking, and our height, which again now is 3-story, but there is no condition on feet, but it's a 3-story maximum. And that
follow.
commercial or / retail must be only on the first floor.
I follow. The original one was one building, 60,000. This proposal is.
I don't know how many,
60.
I don't know if it was a 2 or 3-story building.
Okay, 40 or 60.
Correct, something.
This is conceptual in nature, I understand. Is that the parking configuration, or would the
No,
residences be kind of, we redo the parking so people who are part of the apartment can access it from the rear, or what's the
Well,
thought
there-
process?
there would have been a sidewalk anyway that would go from the medical office into our project. So that would remain the same.
Okay, so but if like whoever's your apartment, the residents of your apartment, they're parking in the parking lot of, where would they be parking? I'm sorry.
Right now, if you see the red line, that is only what was the medical office. Everything here is for the residents currently. So there would be additional parking all
Gotcha,
around.
understood. I know
Yeah.
it's not designed. I'm just, I got it. Okay.
So you're just not showing the parking right there, yeah.
No, this is just preliminary, but
Yeah.
we have another plan that will show.
Sure.
That we conform.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how many apartments would you be looking at in each building?
Somewhere in each building, approximately 15 to 20.
And do I understand that correctly? If you do this, because you don't have the 5 acres, that those, not necessarily those units, maybe units in the back, that you are gonna have a 20% affordable component to it?
I believe that's your code.
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, you could say it's those units up there, but in all likelihood, you'll probably, he could disperse them throughout the
In the back,
community.
it's
They would have to be.
Okay.
What's the mix of bedrooms?
1s and 2s. No 3s.
Mhm.
Maybe a couple studios. So we have 3 studios anyway. Within the project.
Eric, you anything?
Could I discuss a little bit? I think, what Mr. Zuckerman is here this evening for, some of you may be aware of it, some of you aren't. He has 115 units in the back.
117.
117. I always say 115. I apologize for
And a
that.
clubhouse.
1 and 2 bedrooms. But the project itself was approved with commercial in the front, which was a footprint of 22,000, I believe. It's a 2-story structure. The property was not subdivided. The property is under a land lease.
Correct.
Correct? And it's the first one, I think, that we've ever done in the town of Bethel. So right now, the land is leased to a medical conglomerate that built Maple Woods and a couple other places right there. So I think the question for you this evening is, one of you have a site plan with an approved medical building on it. And this, from what I understand, this is a conception of something different. And before Mr. Zuckerman went to great lengths or whatever needs to be done in order to pursue this more, he wanted an idea from the commission if this was something that was agreeable.
Yeah.
So that, I think, am I explaining that correctly?
100%.
Okay, but you have to understand that at this point, the property is leased by someone else. With, as far as I know, full intention of doing what they.
Correct, but we've
do.
spoken to our tenant, so to speak, and again, be it economics, however one wants to call it, they may not have the capacity at this point to go further, and therefore we introduced the concept to them. And again, because there is this upzoning now along Route 6, it gives it the opportunity to yield more units, have some decent retail that could service everybody here, which is always nice. That's kind of where we are.
And in regards to this too, if you were to consider this concept, there would be a change in the regulations to allow for the residential over the commercial, similar to the TOGs.
mixed use.
But we didn't even go into that.
Understood.
Correct.
That, we don't have that. That was part of what was going to go over where the old Stony Hill was.
No, see, that is what's confusing
Oh,
here,
it
because
is,
the
yeah.
old Stony Hill not only dealt with that, but it also dealt with an increase in residential uses.
Right.
An allowance, there was a formula that was
Right.
involved
Okay.
to allow them the density besides the height requirements, if a certain percentage were affordable.
Right.
Basically, what we're discussing here is taking your standard 20%. You're not talking about doing 30% or
Mhm.
blah, blah, you know, the formula there. This is straight, keep it simple, keep it according to what you have
Mhm.
now as far as the affordability.
Right.
Okay.
And just, you know, so we as a company throughout New Jersey, we probably own and manage on affordable units themselves, probably 1,000 apartments, just as affordable.
I mean, for Route 6, like my own opinion, this is much more attractive than the previous concept I was from.
What previous
Yeah,
concept?
yeah, but they were talking
This is
about
the
storage. Storage.
But this is.
I know, but this is attractive for Route 6. And it also does bring in some commercial concept to the bottom.
Could you help us understand the commercial part a little bit? Like what kind of commercial spaces?
Well, again, probably the depths in this would be no more than 65, 70 feet in depth. So you're not really getting a full-fledged retail, let's say as a strip center. They're probably more in the 80-foot range. So again, it's just mom and pop. It could be a dry cleaning, could be a bagel shop, and small surfaces.
Gotcha.
There's nothing that's going to be large here. I mean, again, urgent care could come in here, for instance. That could be a use.
Diane or Bob, you guys have anything?
How many apartments are we talking in these two buildings again?
Somewhere between, let's say, 35 and 40 apartments.
Okay. And how many storefronts do you think you would have?
I'm sorry?
How many storefront?
About 20,000 square
About 20,000 feet.
But how many stores, you would break that up into smaller?
It could be approximately 8 to 10 units, depending on the footprint.
Okay.
Diane?
I know the public is very worried about all the apartments and buildings. So, and initially you were gonna have it all commercial in the front, correct? So this is a change and would need a change in the zoning. I'm concerned about more apartments.
Excellent. And, it's my turn. I'm also concerned with the apartments. Here in town, we're dying for is not the right, term, but we're really looking for more commercial. I
But
think giving up,
this gives you both.
I understand.
Not much.
That's what
But-
this one calls for.
We had a regulation called the schmood. We removed it. That was what was
Mhm.
used up in the
Right.
one you were referencing across from Big Y with the 4-story building. Because of what we saw was brought in there, and we, as a commission, didn't like the end result. So we removed that regulation. Here we have a, New Vance is the hospital, the only hospital. They just entered a huge, deal recently. It was all over the news about expanding the services around town here. They're looking for more medical space. I think if we have an application right now, or we have an approval for medical space, as a commission, in my opinion, I think we'd be foolish to even consider getting rid of that. And putting in more apartments. That's just my opinion right now.
I hear you,
I
but
agree.
from an economics point, from our point of view, there may be nothing there for a long time. And we don't want to see a property that's should have been a medical office.
I agree.
Not be something.
I don't want to see a empty lot either. But I don't want to drive by in a
You don't
year.
want to put a lot of pickle courts there, you know.
I think
just
our
have cooking and
constituents,
clocking all night.
I think our constituents would suggest they'd rather see an empty lot than one apartment in this town at this time.
That might be
Possible.
possible.
Very possible.
Um,
You may not know the underlying tone here, but
Well, I'm hearing it.
Yeah.
Well, you are. but I
Well,
mean,
we
we've
are
had a
too.
I'm
lot
just
of
trying to be blunt.
I understand.
There's a very significant, current of this town is overbuilt. I'm on the, I'm with that. I think it's overbuilt. And I think, we're gonna start to feel the pressure on our schools. If we just renovated our school, the schools are at capacity already, so it's great to have tax generating things, but we're now at the point that the infrastructure is lagging and we're gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay, but from a logistics point in terms of affordable housing, we're bringing something to the community that maybe the other apartments in town are not doing. So again, that's a state regulated mandate. In New Jersey, that's a thrust for us. You must do affordable housing. And all the towns in 2025 in New Jersey are going to be under the gun because they haven't satisfied the requirement. Now, I'm not saying that Bethel has satisfied or not. However, that's what the new zoning calls for. So to me, I say, if I have to spread out 20% of affordable units now in the marketplace, I'm giving up something as well for the benefit of providing more housing.
Understood. And I appreciate that gesture. It doesn't go unseen, for sure. Again, we have an approval for something that they could put a shovel in the dirt next week and start working on it.
They can. No, we're not saying that they shouldn't.
Yeah.
However, I'm just indicating the economics. It may not happen.
Yeah. And it may. At the same
And there
time.
have been properties along there that have stood empty for a long time. They're ugly, but
You
you
go
don't
down,
need, more and more there's such a backup of traffic. A lot of times 184 is backed up on 6 and we're already adding all those other people and haven't even moved into the other apartments that have been approved and are being built.
If Mr. Zuckerman, proceeded, let's just say hypothetically proceeded with the design and developed it a little further with a little bit more information than just the concept we have and a rendering of another project, does that null and void the existing medical office building commercial?
No, absolutely. That is the approved site plan that you have right now.
Right.
And I think you have, right? It's at least a land lease agreement is what it's called. It's
Mhm.
not something that I'm totally
Yeah.
familiar with, but from what I have, a land use agreement is you are locked into whatever is
Correct. This would have to be a change of use.
right.
Mhm.
But you have an approval. If the question is, you have an approval, you have an approval.
Right.
Right.
Once
But-
you something else, that's null and void, the previous.
Paul,
Yeah,
Paul, the problem being with, sticking with the, medical building is it feasible and rentable? And that's what I think a developer is looking at when he comes into us with the problem of wanting to change it to something else. We got the same
Okay, but
explanation with Stony Hill up there, with the Stony Hill property. That's just not viable rentable property right now. That they can go to a bank and say, I want to build this building. I need money to do it with. And again, that's not our problem. We don't own the property.
Yeah.
But it is our problem, and we don't, like you say, you don't want to see it sit empty either.
Well, Bob, to that point,
You don't want to see it built and sit empty.
Bob, to that point, we just, last year approved an application for the Visiting Nurse Association to, totally tear down and double the size of their building on the corner of Route 6, right across the street from Big Y. Because they needed more space, they needed more medical offices, needed more office space, and
That's not
that's a road.
that's not NA anymore. That's a different.
Anyway.
The old
different
VNA,
person.
though. If I remember correctly, that's gonna be more medical offices there.
I'm not saying you can't put a medical office over there. And
Home care. I'm sorry, it's not Bethel VNA anymore, but it's the same.
It's still medical.
It's still medical office and it's a
it would
mile.
be a medical building, yeah.
And
So
it's 4 stories.
there is a need in town.
2 stories.
Oh, 2 stories, Diane.
Oh,
Just-
Oh, really?
Oh,
Sure.
right on the corner.
I know, but it seems really high. Are you sure? I think it's more than 2.
2 stories.
No, it's 2.
All right.
2 stories.
It has the point,
Looks humongous.
makes it look bigger.
It's 2
Can we move
stories.
the question?
So
Yeah.
I think you're looking for a consensus from us.
Yes,
Yeah.
we don't.
Yeah, to see if you wanna something you want to move forward.
Mhm.
Well, I'll put it up to the board members.
Before we go to the board members, are you willing to compromise on the number of residential units?
Not really. Not
So
really.
it's an all or nothing.
Well, again, to go through that effort, I mean, some substance, again, I have to give up 20% in the entire community. So even if I have less, so I've got that much less, but it's still affecting in terms of the, on the inside. Meaning, generally speaking, when we do affordable units, blend it in with market rate units on all of the other jobs, they may not have the same square footage because it's not necessary. A 2 or 3 bedroom, should it be via what the town or the county requires? I'm just saying in New Jersey, a 3 bedroom only is required to have 1 full bathroom. If we had a 3 or 2 bed, or all of our 2 bedrooms have 2 full bathrooms. So I'm saying we would be compromising, but satisfying an obligation in terms of affordable housing in that regard. Here, we started building the project now, which is all 6 buildings are up based on market rate. Again, in discussions with our tenant, that he may or not go forward. That's why I'm here to say, well, if we can get more units, we're gonna, establish that we can fit something on this property. It is still commercial / residential, and have more apartments, at least for the giving up the 20%. So the answer is, I really don't want to see, I couldn't see anything less than 30 if that could happen, but it's just a matter of the footprint and the way things work out.
That's fine.
All right, well, I'll put it up to the board members. Let's start online for a change. Bob, Diane, what do you guys think? Would you be open to it, or are you happy with the way it is?
Do you want to go first?
Thanks a lot. I said my piece as far as, I think you want to put something in there that's going to be successful. You want something in there that, when you put the shovel in the ground, like you say, it's going to be something that has either been successful in the past or it's going to be successful in the future. And we don't have that crystal ball, but correct me if I'm wrong, Beth, if we go with 20% affordable housing on the total project, that's adding more unaffordable units to the whole project, right?
I'm not understanding the question.
No, he's saying if you add.
There's way more
It's
unaffordable than there will be affordable, is what he's saying, right?
What? No.
You're getting your affordable projects on one hand, but on the other hand, you're putting a big group of unaffordable things on the docket. It's the tail we chase, with affordable housing. You're never going to catch it.
Well, right now, as it stands, we wouldn't have an affordable component with it as it's approved. Is that correct?
That's
Yes.
correct.
Right. So now we are gaining 20% affordable housing if it was something that went forward. I'm just trying to clarify that.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Right, and that's 20%
Okay, but-
on the total, on the 117 plus the 30 to
For the
40.
entire project.
Right now, it's 117 with no affordable.
All right, Diane?
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
I stalled as long as I could, Diane.
With all the people that are moving into the area, I would think that you would need some more commercial space. There's going to be so many people moving on into the Stony Hill area, and I don't think there's as many commercial spaces. So I really don't think it's a good idea to add more housing, even if you're getting 20% affordable, which is still not a lot. And I think you came before us too with senior housing or something. I mean, I'd be more open to senior housing than I would be just general housing.
Well, I
So the
did,
answer is no.
Yeah.
Can I be open and frank?
Sure.
I had an old discussion, with Beth. If we did let's say an active adult of 55 and up only on the front and still supply affordable housing, but only keep it to the new units and not within everything else. But I think that was
We couldn't
bandied
get past I couldn't get past
bandied around.
the storage.
Storage units.
The storage units and things of that nature. My concern was, dealing with the number of units in regards to the rental that's already out there. And you have to remember that, oh gosh, I can't remember what month it was last year, but you also had someone that came in and proposed 50 units of active adult community on the, Hollandia property.
Right.
And you knocked that down, that concept. So I had a track record in order to. They just came in with Hollandia and they wanted to do 50 high end, 55 and older, and the commission said they were not interested.
What's your feelings down there, John?
Go ahead, Eric. I mean, I think the commercial space, I think intrigues me and everybody, but I think the cost, I think, the message is, more apartment units. I think that's hard for everyone to kind of wrap their heads around and swallow. So
Right now,
that's
yeah.
where I'm at, yeah.
True.
I agree with that.
I'm probably that one that's the opposite here. Frankly, I think it's worth looking at. I know it's a risk on your part, but I like the adding of 20% affordable to the entire project. I think that's a good thing for our town. We are still getting commercial space here. It's not going to be your large medical office suites. It's going to be more mom and pops, like you said. But that's just my personal opinion.
I feel the same way. That's me, and I think I said that.
Doug?
Do not feel the same way they do. I would not like to see more apartments out there.
Okay.
So it's no.
And I also agree. I would not like to see a change. I'd like to see it with the medical that's already approved.
I'd like to see the medical too. Okay.
Or two.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time, sir.
I'm not voting, by the way. I'm not seated, so that was just
That
my
wasn't an
opinion.
official vote.
Oh.
No, it was a
No, it's just a
consensus.
consensus.
Gotcha.
So water
Gotcha.
temperature.
Yeah, if it was
It's
a
the
vote,
vote
then
that tells
wouldn't
me I can go home now.
All right, I'm gonna cast more of those. How do I do that?
All right.
You already did the.
So we'll move to our business meeting, and just a reminder, Doug is staff. Yes.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to pay the News Times invoices of $884.90.
Second.
Any, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
You wanna go home?
Abstentions? Motion passes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from, last meeting, 4/23/24?
Motion to approve the minutes of 4/23/24.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Aye.
Any abstentions?
One.
One abstention, Mr. Kozlowski?
Mike abstained. Amanda, you getting this okay? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, new business, ECB Realty LLC, site plan special permit, 22 Stony Hill Road.
That's a previously approved, gas station on the corner of,
Oh, I know where
Benedict
that is.
and, Route 6 at the light. They've revised the site plan. It was approved for a drive-through. It is back to you for review because they've removed the drive-through facility associated with it, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so I'd like to set that for a public hearing on June 25th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any noes? Any abstentions? Motion passes. We're going planners report, Greenwood Avenue banners. I've had a chance to check those out on the Google Drive.
I want to bring
Blue.
them right now.
Blue, the banners, the colors are changing. They're going with blue. On the light poles on Greenwood Avenue with the different sayings and so on and so forth on them.
Why
The
blue?
reason they're going to blue is because it matches the street signs. It was a good, even though the maroon is a nice color, but it's more of a standard, type 2, not the script so much as what these are that are presently there. The script is sometimes difficult to read. It's just an acknowledgement for you guys to know that new banners are going up. That's what they're gonna say. And I think it's a good match.
Do you need like a vote from us or anything?
No.
or it's not
I don't
our
need
purview?
Just letting us know that.
When you get hollered, when you get comments, not, excuse me.
All right.
All right, let's move on.
Beth, I just have a question. Is that group that's TIC Insurance Center, are they paying for it? Is that gonna be on there?
I think that's used as a sample. I think
Oh,
that's all
so-
it is. Sample.
okay, so we're not gonna have a company's name on it?
Yes, you will.
Oh,
That's a sample.
You can
A
sponsor
sample
it.
Different
sign.
companies can sponsor it.
oh, okay.
Sign.
That's the blue,
And they pay, yes.
dark blue, not the, how do you figure that's the same color as signs?
Because it's easy to read. Blue, your computer screen's got a
The
blue
one on the
back,
right, the one on the right.
one on the right.
But you said they were the same color as the street signs.
They're close to the same color. Excuse me, Bob. It's 10:35, Bob.
I'm trying to keep you awake.
Okay.
All right.
I'll mute you.
You have something else?
Yes, I do. It's an unusual circumstance. No, don't bite my arm off yet. Again, you have a lot going on. There is a residence, 10 Topstone Drive in Bethel. They've done major renovations to the house. I've gone over this with the chair. They're installing a pool, underground pool.
Underground.
There you go.
That's gonna be kind of cool.
That would be great.
From the
In-ground pool.
basement right in.
They're also constructing an accessory structure in relation to the pool. The pool, it will be a home office that will exceed the square footage allowed. Square footage allowed is 500 square feet. This is 600 and something. I tried to work it any way I could in order to see if we could make them comply with the zoning regs without having to go to you as the commission. Unfortunately, they do have to go to the commission. What I would like to do, if at all possible, is to schedule the public hearing. I can squeeze them in on the 28th of May. Think about this, kids, pool, summer. We can put them in on the 28th, if that's agreeable with you,
Sounds like a plan.
and put them up first. I don't care what you have going on that evening, we will put them first.
Need a motion or? can I-
Yes, to schedule a public hearing.
I'll make a motion to schedule a
The
public hearing.
Edelmans
for
is the last
Edelmans,
name.
10 Topstone Drive for
Correct.
accessory structure, on
Correct.
May 28th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I promise you it will be
Any
very short.
abstentions? And as a note, please make sure it is the first thing on the agenda.
Thank you very much.
That's a massive problem.
Do we have any commission comments?
I have one,
Yes.
and I've been waiting to say. I would like to thank BJ Liberty, because every time I go through town, her tulips were the most beautiful thing in the world. And they just made me smile, and I want to say thank you. Thank you for all your hard work and the beautifying.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes. Two comments, not action needed today, but we did talk about needing to make a change to the regulations after we went through.
Oh, jeez. I'm sorry. Oh, this is my babysitter. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Walk slowly.
I am. Oh, I forgot my cane. Hello. Yeah.
After
Hello?
we went through that change.
Hello?
Uh,
It's not working.
for the project at the bottom of the
Hello?
schools.
Hello?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. we talked
Steve
about
DeMarco.
The Marco, thank you. So I'm simply asking, I don't need an answer tonight, that at least at the next meeting, we address where that stands, that change to the verbiage, to the regulation.
We talked about when they're on property, like with an existing structure, an inspection, a third party inspection report.
Yes,
48 plum trees.
Yes.
42 plum trees.
it's, yes, I got it. I know what you mean.
Right.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
It's good to be, I'll remember those days.
Yeah,
And-
can we have that for the next time or?
One is, you had sent us a while back, although you clearly qualified it as it was early and it wasn't complete, the traffic study. So my question is, where are
Still
we?
wait. We have the parking part is done,
And the draft has been.
and the draft
available
is in the
every
drive.
Drive.
And then the other part pertaining to that is the mobility, the changes along Greenwood Avenue. And,
That is still a work in progress.
that's still, I would say it's 90% done.
Yeah. We're
still waiting for that.
Is there
Isn't there a Route 6 mobility study that people are being asked to do this weekend or something?
That's sustainable, Bethel. The, as far as, let me just finish addressing the question about the mobility. As far as that is concerned, mobility studies being handled by Janice, I can get you an ETA on that.
Yeah, I'm just,
Yeah.
things that we talked about.
Yeah. Now, thank you for the follow-up, Will. I appreciate it. I need reminders.
Any public input?
Thank you guys for your patience and endurance. Bravo you.
I'm sorry, Pam, we need your name.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, if there's nothing else, then,
Motion to adjourn.
second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night.
Night.